So, greetings and salutations. Welcome to what would normally be the Vaingate Chronicles, but today we're having a special episode because some of our players are busy doing things like flying to Canada and hanging out with their family for Christmas and all of this kind of mundane stuff that has nothing to do with Dungeons and Dragons or role playing or anything exciting or interesting like that. Family and Christmas and celebrations. I don't know what they're thinking, but anyway, they've left us for dead and they've pissed off not just her either. We're talking about numerous members of our cast. It's a disgrace, and I mean, I'm starting to think they're going to begin to unionize next. I don't know what I'll do. I'll have to raise their salary by another zero, which is going to blow everything out of the water. But anyway, in any case, today we're doing a special live stream with some of the members from the Vaingate cast, who we'll bring you over to now. We have Michael Bache up in the top left-hand corner of your screen. Michael plays Adric Fogdar in our Vaingate Chronicles campaign, usually found on a Saturday at 2 p.m. New Zealand time, which is plus 12 GMT. We have Barry Tahira down in the bottom left-hand corner, a very, very old friend of mine who's been playing in the Vaingate Chronicles for about 2 years, plays in numerous other campaigns, including Dagdagiel and The Legacy of Icarus, which is a vampire game on Sunday nights, New Zealand time.
Hello there.
And finally, I would like to introduce you to Jordan, or Jojo, as we like to refer to him, who has come to us through a variety of myriad vectors. He does some of our tech on Vaingate Chronicles and some of our other streams now. And he's been volunteering to help in a number of different ways. He plays in my Sunfall campaign on Wednesdays. He plays in some of the other one-shots that I've done. What else do you do, Jordan?
To do Dagdagiel as well.
Dagdagiel, of course. What the hell? Dagdagiel. So you play Alexander in Dagdagiel, the human sorcerer. So you guys haven't kind of ever met in the context of this particular scenario before. So here's your opportunity to say hello to one another and all that sort of stuff. I'm just going to go over and check the stream while you guys say hello.
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 It's nice to see you guys in this form. We surely haven't been talking like this for the last half hour.
No, not at all. No.
Exactly. So, looks like we've got some people having a looky here. Let's see. Coming over to the live stream now. Mad Girl Charlie and Wolfskin Witch are with us. Hey guys. If anyone wants to potentially even join in, you could. I could send you a Zoom link and we could just pop this open to more and more people. Just for an opportunity, meet some viewers. Could be an interesting thing to do.
What we're really going to be doing today is just chatting about oned&d, the stream, and where it's going, where we're going, where D&D's going.
Right. And a bit of getting to know the cast of various things, Vaingate Chronicles and Dagdagiel, I suppose, as well.
Unfiltered nonsense.
Unfiltered nonsense, basically, is what we propose to bring to you today, and hopefully it's, not completely terrible. So, Michael, what would you like to talk about? What's on your mind on the D&D role-playing landscape at the moment?
Honestly, I'm really quite enamored by all this talk about oned&d. I've actually got a PDF up in front of me.
Yeah.
And what they've done in this last week, some of you may have read, is that they've revised the cleric.
Yes. I had to listen to a video last night of Jeremy Crawford talking about this.
Yeah, so I in general really, really like what they've done, with one minor caveat.
Yeah.
Like, at the first level, they've given it the channel divinity, which I don't remember where they get it normally, but they've turned it into divine spark and turn undead, which they have turn undead already, but divine spark is they've made the class a whole lot more flexible, where it'll either heal depending on based on d8s with their proficiency bonus, or damage based on a constitution saving throw on what the hell they're attacking.
Right.
Which is pretty excellent. I love the flexibility because you're not locking people like Joe into having to be the the healer always.
You're talking about Goodale in the Vangate Chronicles?
Yeah,
Right. Right.
because that was my big bugbear with like clerics. Not so much that they were relegated to the healer role, but I never liked the idea that people felt like they had to be a healer.
Right.
Or,
Well,
because they would be taken out of the action somewhat.
Jordan, you play a Daughter of Twilight cleric in our Sunfall campaign, so you're quite informed by a lot of what Joe does in the Vangate Chronicles.
Yeah, I am, and I think definitely as being a cleric, the general stereotype is healer. But for example, my character has an class of 19, so I'm ready to get in there and punch faces up. I'm
Right.
just ready to do it.
Yeah, and you do
I'm
as
ready
well.
to go.
Yeah.
And I do as well, and I'll happily do it.
Right. But you've also been, I mean, as I've witnessed in Sunfall, the group is working really nicely together as a kind of mechanized little unit now, which is quite cool. And seeing how you hang out in the center of the team so that your aura, with is it Channel Divinity that you're using at that time?
It's my channel divinity, yeah.
Right. Right. And so you're healing everybody. What does it do? It gives them a base number of temp hit points?
Oh, you're a Twilight cleric.
Yeah, he's a Twilight cleric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I give them, I think it's a D6 plus 4 or 3 or something with temporary hit points.
Right.
Which always so useful. So we've devised strategies on how that situation is developing or is going forward, which is useful.
Yeah, we've had a couple of interesting encounters involving bottleneck situations and sewers and things, and driders and drow and some other things we're still trying to figure out what they are. But anyway, that's all fun and games. Yeah, so, I mean, coming at it, what do you think about the idea generally, you guys, as an overall concept, 1D&D? What is 1D&D, and what does that mean for us as players and DMs?
I really like that it's, from what I've seen, it's in general really, really flexible.
Yeah.
It's in some ways it's more restrictive. It's trying to keep people from multi-classing, which isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world.
Why do you say that? Why do you say it's trying to keep them from multi-classing?
Because a lot of the classes, especially the subclasses rather,
Yeah.
each thing are doing things that other things will do. So, for example, with the what I can see here is only at 3rd level cleric subclass is going to be a thing with this, and that may be retcon later because this is all playtest.
Right, but it seems like they're trying to put all of the subclasses at 3rd level across the board now. That's the general gist of that.
Yeah, well, with cleric previously is typically your dip multiclass will take 1 or 2 levels in just for that nice juicy subclass.
Right.
Previously, with this, it feels like it's going to, discourage that to a degree.
Right. I think, but there are other classes, I suspect, where that's going to actually balance in some cases.
Maybe. Like, this is only ever the case with, like, the Warlock.
Right.
Where your patron pact thing is available at 1, but you get more specific at level 3 with how it manifests.
Right, the Pact of the Chain, the Pact of the Tome, etc.
Like that.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, hearing Jeremy Crawford talking about it, he was talking about multi-classing as a thing. It's not like they're banning it or anything. But I guess what you're suggesting is they're discouraging it a little bit with this, or forcing people to rethink multi-classing at the very least.
It's a soft discourage rather than, I need to make up for something like that. It feels like it's much more, you really have to think about it as a player, as a storyteller.
Right. I like the new ideas for the backgrounds options. The idea that rather than, like it used to be on, like, for example, D&D Beyond, you'd go to your background and you'd choose a background, or if you wanted to, you could create your own background, but it seemed to you'd have to work that out. And they've switched it so that the priority now is that you do make your own background, and they give you some very easy examples to just choose from, which are the standard backgrounds, I gather. Sailor, urchin, soldier, that kind of thing.
I do like that.
Yeah, but now you can kind of make your own background with your own set of proficiencies and skills, language, and all of the toolkits or what have you that you get now equal exactly 50 gold pieces instead of like some of them. In particular, I think the rogue and the noble not the rogue. What was it? One of them. Anyway, one of them gave you an extraordinary amount of tools, and the other one was the noble, which gave you an extraordinary amount of money, and so you could have a much vaster toolkit if you wanted to spend that money on individual things.
That kind of makes sense with the noble, because money is kind of what defines them.
Right.
But also, if you're a noble, you're going to have access to greater learning than your average peon.
Right. Right, but you're also probably going to be, dare I say it, a little softer in some ways too.
Guaranteed. Like, which I find it really funny when someone plays like a noble fighter. It's like, how many bar fights did you really get involved in?
Right. Well, and maybe they spend a lot of time slumming it, but now we're talking about a multi-class fighter rogue, I feel, or something like that. But anyway,
I do like the idea of a noble fighter being like,
Mummy doesn't trust me to get bar fights, so I'm going to slum it in the sailor's quarter for a fortnight.
right.
and they come back all scarred with an enormous beard and like a haunted look in their eyes.
I've seen things.
I've seen things. Exactly.
I saw a man eat a rat.
Something.
So Barry, what does D&D 1D&D mean to you right now? I mean, you're
It means I have to learn a lot of changes.
right. Well, yeah, I guess so.
And how those changes affect my characters.
Right. I think the thing is right now, as we're playing it, we feasibly we could add the 1D&D rule set into our stream campaign, D&D Beyond, that will do that. And that will automatically affect those changes for us as we play test them, but I'm not sure we want to sort of play test something in the middle of a campaign and then come back to the original rules and then switch to whatever happens after that. I feel that in the middle of a campaign, you probably need to stick to one rule set until you get to the end of that campaign.
Yeah, I agree. Or at the very least, we
Yeah.
do it. If we are to adapt, we adapt when D&D is a concrete final thing, not
Right.
in the middle of this, because I feel like a lot of that's going to change.
I agree.
Just for the cleric thing, I really feel like they will move the cleric subclass back to the first thing.
Right.
But it has a second level feature called Holy Order, which just gets into that flexibility a bit more, where it turns it into Protector, which lets them train for battle. It just gives them a weapon proficiency and armor training. Scholar, which is proficiencies in different skills like nature, persuasion, arcana, etc. And Thaumaturge, which is just more spells. So it might give someone like Joe more flexibility because it feels like she wants to be in the fight a bit more.
Right. Well, I was listening to the video about the Ranger, and that might interest you, Barry, because the Ranger, especially the Hunter Ranger, which is the one they've just released in the Unearthed Arcana recently, it seems to be overall stronger than in the past and less dependent on DM caveat, or sorry, DM fiat, should I say.
It really fixed the Ranger. It's much, much better.
Yeah, I mean, you know how you have sort of things like certain enemies that you choose, certain environments that you choose, and you pretty much are at the whim of the DM to say, yeah, you're in a grassland location, and that allows you these fancy things that that basically you can't rely on because the rest of the time you're in a freaking dungeon or you're crawling around the fiery plains of Tartaros or something.
Yeah, and that can be frustrating.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know they've made a number of things to address that. Like Rangers have, I think they have more powerful spell casting starting at level 1.
Yeah, they've got spellcasters now.
Yeah, and the another interesting thing with D&D 1D&D is that they've transformed the spell lists so that we're going from every character class having their own spell list to 3 master spell lists. They may still have class spell lists that are just for simplicity's sake, but for the most part you're choosing a number of spells from a master spell list, like the Arcane, the Divine, and the Primal, I think are their 3 main spell lists. The other thing that I find interesting is they've got the way they categorize the character classes is new. Well, it's not new, it's old. It's coming back. You've got the expertise classes, so now the Ranger's also going to have expertise like the Rogue does. As will the Bard, And I have to say, I'm starting to soften my feelings on bards over time. I'm slowly beginning to feel maybe bards could be a thing in Sidario. We've had a couple of bards from time to time.
I feel particularly weird about bards, and it's not because they're a bad class. It's mostly just because of how the culture around them is, because they're always just generally the horny bard.
Yeah, I just I don't see that trope, weirdly enough. I've never seen a player character do that, at least not since I was about 14.
I have seen a player character do that, and they're a very good friend of mine. But it's it wasn't a very friendly small game, so it was fine.
Right.
But it wouldn't be something I could enjoy long term with another player.
Right. Well, that's fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think when I think of bards, I mean, bards have an interesting kind of ancestry when it comes to fantasy. Like, where does the bard trope actually come from, if you look into that? And the deeper I went, the furthest I could really get was Lord of the Rings, where there is a character whose name is dun 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 dun. Can you guess what it is?
Tom Bombadil?
Nope. There's a
Okay,
character.
no.
There's a character whose name is Bard.
Oh, you mean the gentleman that killed
He kills Smorg. Yeah, he killed Smorg with an arrow, but his name was Bard, and he kind of is like a bard, you know, and that's cool. And we have legends of bards from history, but they're kind of entertainers and fools.
See, I thought the conception of the bard that we have now was based on the skull and the myth, or rather the culture, around Celtic bards, where they were designed as a foil to a king, where if they wrote a scathing enough song,
Right.
they'd be like, well,
Right.
he can't be king. He wrote a parody about.
Well,
him.
yeah, exactly. That's what a fool is, essentially, as
Yeah.
well. You know, exactly the same thing, where you have kind of license to spill your own propaganda in whichever direction you want, as long as the sovereign will put up with that nonsense. But, you know, there's going to be a certain amount of loss of face if they don't put up with that nonsense.
Yeah.
So,
I killed the fool for making fun of me.
yeah.
Oh, I quite liked him. Oh, rebellion now.
Rebellion now. Going to have a bit of a rebellion. So I'm just going to go over to the stream, actually, and check up on messages. There's a lot to do when you're streaming. People have no idea. What do we got here?
I tried streaming recently, and I need to fix the tech because there's a lot going wrong. But I really enjoyed it, just like because I'm playing what the fuck's it called? Disco Elysium, which is a great game. Highly recommend.
Okay, so sound looked like it might have been a problem, so I've just sorted that out. Hopefully that is a bit better.
How is the music, guys? Because I've got a thing playing in the background.
So I'm just checking the stream chat to see if...
I can't hear the music. I've got the stream up.
Okay,
Yep, I don't have
bust
no
up
music
bit.
neither. There we go.
How's that?
Yep, there it goes. You'll get it in about 3 seconds, I imagine.
Huzzah. So this is a little thing that it's actually an album within Sirenscape called Shadows of Esterin, and it's an album, which is weird.
Right.
I can hear it now. Wolfston Witch has also said she can hear it.
Very good.
Yep, sounds better. No music. Now I can hear the music, she says. Thank you, Wolfskin Witch. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah, so D&D, one D&D. Interesting stuff.
I think the thing I'm a little bit weird about 1D&D, and it's just a me thing more than anything else, I think, is the new race, or sorry, species.
Right.
Because we are because of a whole lot of
Are we talking about
progressive thinking.
talking about the Ardling here?
I feel weird about the Ardling.
Right, me too.
Well, why do you feel weird about it? Because I think you've probably got a much more intelligent thing than me, because I just think it just feels like furry bait.
Yeah, kind of. I totally see that. And I think it also, like, from my point of view... So basically, what we're talking about, the Ardling is a new race they're putting into Dungeons & Dragons in the next edition. Well, they're testing it at the moment to see if it's a good idea. I vote that it's not. Basically, you can have animal heads. So you can look like a member of the Egyptian pantheon, for example. You can walk around with an ibis head, or a cat's head, or a dog's head, or a hyena, or what have you. And these are things that have kind of in other places already been kind of replicated or otherwise produced. We've had Aarakocra with birds' heads. We've had
The shifter.
Right. Shifters. There's already a number of species.
Don't I already do that?
Yeah, Tabashi
You've got
is
your
one of
Tabashi,
them.
yeah.
So Tabashi is the cat people. You've got minotaurs that exist in the
Leonin.
game if you wanted to go down that road. So basically my question is this necessary? They're calling them Celestials, and what I gather from what Jeremy Crawford was saying is they've got your three main alignments, and then your three sub-alignments across the board in your kind of matrix, the alignment matrix: lawful to chaotic, lawful, neutral, chaotic, and good, neutral, evil. So you've got 9 alignments, and so these alignments are affected by these various planes of existence. Therefore, like the chaotic evil alignment is that plane is I think it's the abyssal plane, for example, starting with the abyss, and this goes through all of the various planes, and the different races come from these different planes apparently, and so these particular creatures, the Ardlings, are Celestials, and so the idea is that they come from a kind of godly, deified, deific, divine origin. Now, the characters don't necessarily have to reflect those alignments, but you can have a completely evil Ardling, that might not be lawful good or neutral good or whatever the hell they are. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Because at the end of the day, you're a person first, so
Right.
you gotta think second.
Right, and similarly, tieflings come from the abyssal planes, right? I mean, I don't really use tieflings in Sidariel. That's not to say they can't exist, they just haven't yet existed. And at some point there may be some storyline whereupon they do. But yeah, anyway, so these new cat people, coming from a totally personal perspective, they're not cat people, they're animal zoomorphic people. I come from a background where I have some appreciation of the historical references of the original deities and animal gods and what have you. So to me, it's kind of profane. I feel like they're just making it cheesy. I can play a cat person now. I can play a dog-headed bard. I don't know, whatever. I don't know. That's where I find it cheesy and difficult. But how about you, Michael? I'm not sure that was intelligent.
No. It makes perfect sense, and I while I don't have the same appreciation for that historical magical side that you will, I agree, and I feel kind of the same. It feels kind of tone deaf, because it doesn't feel like there's a reason to be for this.
Right.
Like, there are so many things that have stronger lore connections to their sources.
Right.
Like, I mean,
the archetype is being watered down.
Yeah, like some of my personal favorites that feel right are like the Satyr, the Leonin,
right?
The Shifter. I love the Shifter, and I think the Shifter does this, but better, because it has an attachment, a very clear attachment to druidic or lycanthropic entities. That these feel right.
Right.
This is just so
generic,
nebulous. Yeah.
It's very generic. There's no one animal that it's attached to, so there's no real theme with any of them. But I get the impression it's kind of like, this is a chance for you to create your own animal race, and you can tweak it however you want, because now the rules for backgrounds and race and species and lineages are all kind of made very optional, which is actually good.
Yeah, like they've got archetypes here.
If you're an imaginative... Sorry,
you finish, Russell.
If you're an imaginative person and you put in your own research, you could use the Ardling race to create a species or race or lineage that was very specific to something that you had in mind. But the game is not giving you the information or the archetype itself. You would have to find that archetype on your own and draw it out of the rule set. That's how I would see it. Sorry.
I've got the archetypes here, like climber, flyer, racer, swimmer. The archetypes for these things to have a very personal part of your own playstyle, I think that works. That's really nice. But you could do that with other things. Like I've done that with Peleus, where with your Beast Path Barbarian, there are 3 different things you can use at level 6, and you can change them as you want. Like currently, I've got him set up to scale walls as he wants. But you
Right.
can also have leaping or swimming. I haven't had a reason to do those yet, but they're things that are possible, and I have lore reasons as to why. But when you do this, you need to have a why, and this just feels like it just feels soulless. Sorry, Jordan, I could see you. I could see you want to say something.
Champing at the bit.
Sorry, buddy.
No, I'm fine. No, you're
No,
right.
I'm done. I'm cueing you. Damn it! Say something.
Say something.
And don't feel that you have to stick to one D&D as a topic. It's just something that we've kind of got here as a backbone to thread the conversation and keep things going.
Like how we brought up
Well,
weird stages and shit.
there's something I want to say. I do exactly.
no.
I do the same. Yeah, I do exactly the same thing with Storm. I take from what I know about a real tiger.
Barry, can you bring yourself round to the camera a little bit?
Uh,
Sorry, mate. Storm, you were saying.
I take from a real tiger what I know of a real tiger, and put it in Storm
Right.
because I don't have much Tabashi information to work with.
Right, that's true. It's fairly thin on the ground.
Yeah, it is pretty thin on the ground.
Yeah, it's you have to extrapolate a lot, and I like the fact that you can extrapolate a lot. But I think with the Ardling species, it's like any animal, and it's so general that they can't be specific about anything. So basically all of the racial feats and traits and what have you are all going to be based on whatever you want, which that's a good thing, I guess. Interestingly enough, feats are a new thing. The way they're doing feats in this new version is going to be interesting. You will get a feat at level 1, everybody,
Which I love.
which I think is really cool. And
As a player, we love it.
they are nerfing certain feats, like Great Weapon Fighter, for example, so that it's what they wanted was an idea where players could choose feats based on their characters rather than feeling that you had to have this feat because this was the best feat in the game. And everybody knew it, and everybody just was like gravitating towards all these martial feats, the specific feats. In fact, Great Weapon Fighter was one of them. There was another one that comes up a lot. Sharpshooter, I think, is the other one.
Yeah.
Everyone's got Sharpshooter and Great Weapon Fighter, and if they don't have those feats, then just not really playable in a competitive environment, which I don't really subscribe to anyway, so it's never really mattered hugely to me. But they've created first level feats, and they've got leveled feats now. So your first level feats will not give you bonuses to your stats. They'll be very simple, but they'll give you specific mechanical advantages. I like the alert feat. What they've done with that is it allows you to switch your initiative place with another player. So you roll your initiative and you can change places with another player in the initiative list. That's kind of cool.
That's really nice, especially if you're, for story reasons, if you're a rogue that is a urchin that is used to living on the streets and having to act quickly. That's perfect.
Right, isn't it? Isn't it great? So you can switch your initiative. What was another one that they mentioned?
Let me see if I've got a nice one up here on this PDF.
But yeah, so it's interesting. They're going to have leveled feats, and you get one at level 1. It doesn't matter what race you are either. It used to be that variant humans could get a feat at level 1. It sounds like they're coming out with new human racial traits too, which is curious. I don't know much about that.
I like that. Well, we'll see when we get it, because I don't know if anything's come up yet. But I like it because there was never a reason for you to play human, unless it was a variant human.
Right. Why would you play a straight-up human that gets no bonuses to anything particularly?
Joe has asked, have the new cleric tweaks been discussed?
A little bit. We've talked about some of those changes. I mean, the biggest change to the cleric, what would you say was? Do you have any clue, Michael?
there's a bit. In general, the cleric is still feels like a cleric, but for me, the biggest changes are the flexibility of it. Levels 1 through 3 are the most big, huge things for me.
Yeah.
At level 1 is that Divine Spark, Channel Divinity, which will heal or do damage depending on what you target.
So, Joe, you won't be familiar with Divine Spark, but it's a new trait that comes in at level 1 and allows you to do a heal or a damage straight off the bat as an action, I think, as a class feature at level 1, instead of, or as well as, spell casting, I guess.
Yeah. Now the major at second level you'll have Holy Order, which makes you a bit more flexible. So as a life cleric, you're kind of locked into being a spellcaster, which is your main thing. Where Holy Order comes in, it turns you into one of 3 different things: Protector, which gives you martial weapon proficiency, heavy armor training; a Scholar, which is much more skills based, so gives you more proficiency in Arcana, History, Nature, Persuasion, and Religion, and bonuses to your ability checks; and then finally Thaumaturge, which is what you're familiar with, more magical stuff. Now the big thing that I think is going to play into the future is where they add the 3rd level subclass, where previously you would have your subclass at level 1. Now it's being pushed to level 3, but we'll see, because again, this is still playtest.
Yeah, and if you're playing it as a non-multi-class character, I think it's going to work pretty well. The overall gist I'm getting, and bear in mind that at the moment they've only replaced the rule set. They're testing the rule set for the life cleric. So they're doing, and curiously enough, right now I'm as happy as a clam, because everybody's testing all of the main core character classes and races again, and everybody's playing those things. And I mean, from my point of view, that's all you need. But everybody wants to play it. Whatever. I'm going off on my own tangent again, but yeah. So they're just doing the life cleric right now. They will do the other. There's going to be 48 total subclasses with, is it 12, I think, or 13, including the Artificer of main classes?
I'm not sure, because Artificer hasn't been implemented just yet, but
right.
the talk is that the Artificer is going to be an expert class.
Right, so there are 12 main classes anyway, and they're going to divide them up into, we got combat classes, essentially, like melee rangers and, no, not rangers, they're experts, class.
Which are classes that specialize in a specific skill.
Yeah.
Spellcasters, which are scrolling back up my PDF. Experts, which do the special thing. Mages, so it'll be sorcerer, warlock, wizard. Priests, which are cleric, druid, paladin. It's weird that paladin isn't priest, because they were moving away from the paladin as a religious thing, and more something that has great conviction.
Right.
And then warriors, which are barbarians, fighters, monks, and it just feels like monks should be in priest, because they're intrinsically religious.
Well, not only that, but the historical background of the monk class. It used to be in 1st edition that you had to be a cleric to like level 9 or something before you could even become a monk. There was like a certain amount of levels as a cleric that you had to achieve before you could switch into the monk class. And a lot of classes like that. It used to be you had to go a certain number of levels in some other class before you could get into one of those more specific classes. I kind of like that, but well.
Jordan, please, for the love of God, do not wait for us to be polite, because we will just keep talking over you. Say your thing, damn it! I can see you want to speak.
Get in there. Definitely get in there.
Don't be polite. Curb stop me.
I'm typing. I have that face where I look like I want to talk while I'm typing. Don't mind me. Don't mind me.
But I mind. You're our guest. We have to take care of you. I can't hand you snacks.
Yes, you could.
I could. I can just type snack into the chat, I guess.
I have to say, Jordan, I'm very proud that you have our background photograph, our background picture, which is the city of Hemeth Tirith, which I had commissioned by a fellow named Mitchell Nolte a couple of years back for Sidario. It's a very nice picture. I love it a lot. Thank you for putting it up there. Anyway. Yes. So, Michael, how did you get into Dungeons & Dragons?
I kind of always wanted to play it, but I only really picked it up in 2019 with a one shot with a friend of mine, and that was my first character death. Sorry, I'm still alive very clearly.
You're still alive.
I'm still alive. And then I dropped it after that for a while. Oh yes, that's Russell's signal that I need to turn the music down slightly.
Yeah.
And after that, I started trying to get into voice acting because my job as a copywriter was soul destroying. And I thought the best way to start practicing and making content was to get into a podcast. So I joined a D&D podcast with a friend of mine, or now a friend of mine. He was holding auditions for it. And that was kind of my introduction to D&D and voice acting.
So that was Dungeons and Dipshits, right?
That was Dungeons and Dipshits, which is currently on hold indeterminately.
Right. But that's where you met Caitlin, who's one of our other players in Vain Gate Chronicles.
Yes.
Right. Interesting.
Yes, and you met Zach on that one shot as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so Zach has actually been on this stream at one time, although it wasn't. Well, to be fair, he wasn't on the stream. He's on our YouTube channel in an archived video of the origins of the Vain Gate Chronicles, I think, somewhere along the lines.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of pre the Vain Gate Chronicles actually existing. It was just, I think, at that point, Barry and I and Steve were doing some, what we called role-playing jam at that point. We were just kind of coming on stream, and I didn't even really have a plan. I just had a kind of a world, and we just jammed to see what happened, and it was fun. And that became the Vain Gate Chronicles. And it was probably about a month or two after that I met you, Michael, and you came on board.
It was at the New Zealand Station Screen Combat School.
Right,
which we wanted to have like a nice, good, proper charity stream, and it didn't work out. Because
and Barry, you were in that stream as well. You played
I was.
You played a Goliath.
And we had difficulties with machinery.
That's right.
Kind of
numerous difficulties.
blew it.
Lots of tech problems. We couldn't get a signal out of that place. It was like
a literal dungeon.
It was a dungeon. I mean, it was full of cool stuff. It looked great, but we couldn't get a signal out to stream for our lives. So we ended up recording like a half an hour little session with like one encounter, basically.
Yeah.
It was fun though. We had fun.
It was good fun.
I got to wave some swords around. Michael, I think, told me off about it.
Did I?
Oh, somebody did. Actually, it might have been... I don't remember who it was.
Doesn't sound like something I would do to anybody.
Doesn't it?
It's not my character. I don't like to tell people off.
Doesn't it?
I'm a fucking wimp.
I will keep that in mind.
So will I.
Mwahaha.
Hang on, you've told my characters off before now?
In character, that's
in character. He has to get into character to do it.
Shows what a
stern
good
as hell.
Shows what a good actor you are then.
Right. Right. So, Jordan, how did you get into Dungeons and Dragons?
Good times. So I was actually playing 3rd or 4th edition, depending on which one it was, when I was 12.
A long-time player.
A long-time player, but I technically stopped from 12 to 23, 24.
So you had the gist of how the basic mechanics of a role-playing game worked, right?
Yeah, pretty much. But I had to take a long break, just because I moved up to Auckland from Wellington, and things were just topsy-turvy, and kind of getting used to Auckland and going through that process.
Right.
That
makes
but
sense.
then I was at the Dolphin Theatre, plug out to them, and I was at their after show or after party for Caitlin's show that she was in, where they were talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and kind of piqued my interest again. And so I came back into the game with a vigorous passion, and
is that pretty much when I met you? Is it?
That's pretty much when I met you. Yeah,
right.
We met each other, and kind of started off that working relationship, as it were.
Yes, indeed.
And then all three of you changed my life completely.
Oh.
Say it was for the good.
For the good, I hope.
So what about you? What about you, Barry? I know the answer to this, but people watching and these guys probably don't know. How did you get into Dungeons and Dragons? Or even, do you want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, or do you want to go all the way back to the aeons before that?
Well, I'd have to go aeons before that because I'm older than all of you.
Probably all of us put together.
And yeah, nearly. I had a friend who's long since gone, and one day at lunch he said to me, "How would you like to be a Star Trek captain?" And of course I'd never heard of role playing, so I looked at him with, I wonder if he's all right, And that's basically how it started. First I started on Star Trek and moved through a dozen other role-playing games.
Right, so what games have you played now? Because I've played Rifts and Palladium and D&D and we played Stargate.
Yeah.
We played Vampire the Masquerade for many
several
years.
years.
That's our longest running game, in fact.
Yeah.
And I've been playing Vampire with Barry since about 1994-5.
Oh, so only a few years ago.
95, I think it was 95, the end of 95. And I met your friend Paul, who was the guy that introduced you to Star Trek.
And we were going to make a movie together.
We got very close. We did a whole bunch of
Star
stuff.
Trek movie. And that's, basically I started with Star Trek and went through even D&D. The old D&D, the very first D&D.
Right. Well, then
So, I've seen a lot of changes in role-playing over the years. Yeah.
How do you...
There's more effective role-playing now. There is much more effective.
Because you play in 2 of my games, Barry. You play, well, at least 2, 3 now. But you play 2 different systems. You play Vampire with me, and you play D&D.
Yep.
Which system, which game, what are the differences? What do you enjoy about each one?
Ooh, I like the game D&D because you have darkness and you have periods when there is no darkness. I mean, you can have an alcoholic frolic through a city, or you can be a variety. Your character can go through a variety of situations. One of my pet loves is Vampire the Masquerade because one, it is dark, and but it's a totally a very serious game. You can have fun in it and comedy, but not very much.
Do you find Vampire sometimes as confronting?
Yeah, it is, and it can be very emotional. I've had people who have literally cried because the situation has called for it, but it's happened in D&D too, where people get very emotional and very... my friend down there, Michael, has played emotional scenes that have almost made me cry.
Right.
You made me cry, Michael, and I've hated you for it. Yes.
Which
Every
scene?
Or like any scene with Edric where it's whether it be your father or
The daughter.
The daughter. Oh,
Wife.
The daughter was the wife. Wife was like the worst. I was bawling my eyes out. I couldn't even watch the stream properly.
Oh,
So-
thanks, Jordan.
Thank you very much for that.
I'm really grateful that you let me hurt you so much.
You hurt all of us, Michael, all of us.
Yeah, good.
But but at the end of the day, I still blame Caitlin for that whole episode.
Oh yeah, it's not Caitlin's fault. I mean, if it didn't happen that way, it would not have happened.
Well, to be fair, I blame myself because I was playing the NPC that upset her so much. So it's kind of that. I mean, I have to take some responsibility for gaslighting the player characters. It's kind of my job as a dungeon master is to gaslight people. But, what are you going to do? So, yeah, but certainly that situation, I wasn't expecting it, and where it went was... it all made sense in the end. It was perfect. It was one of those situations where the game took control of itself, and it went off the rails in a good way, but in a way that nobody expected it to go. Or I don't know, I wasn't expecting it anyway.
I wasn't expecting it.
And we
No, I
all,
wasn't.
we just grabbed hold of our characters, or in my case, NPCs, and rode them like wild beasts because they were just going wherever they wanted to go. I mean, that's how I saw you playing Adric, Michael. That's how you were playing Adric.
Yeah, it's that's just kind of the sign of a good roleplay session when you lose yourself in your character, your world,
Right.
and you know them so well that they have a place in you, and
Yeah.
they go, "No, it's my time. You, Michael, you bold fuck, get back there.
Right.
You watch."
Right, exactly. And it doesn't necessarily mean going off the rails and smashing open tombs and meeting the god of death and having your baby restored back to life and then everybody losing their memories about you and having to give your baby back and then losing your baby having just got them back again and all that drama. It doesn't have to be like that. It could just be, I am going to buy the candy, the what did we call that stuff? Avery came up with a great term for the candy. What did he call it? Jordan, you're in that game. You have to remember. Avery's name for Millmore Glass's candy was
I know exactly.
It's there.
Yeah,
It's on the tip of my tongues. Some sort of everlasting something. It's not gobstopper, but it's something like that. Anyway,
everlasting tongue something or something around it. But it was something to do. Yeah.
Anyway, not really important. This is just a little side thing. We came up with the term Yarkers in Sunfall. Have I told you about the Yarkers, Michael?
No,
By
you
the
have not.
Yarkers.
Right. Well, we were playing in Vaingate. The scenario was in Vaingate, and the Yarkers are the dock workers because I was like, there are lots of dockyard workers, and as I was trying to get my mouth around that sentence, I said there's lots of Yarkers, and then we decided that the Yarkers is the term in Vaingate for the dockyard workers.
That's perfect.
Perfect.
It feels right.
Feels right, right? It was one of those moments where where something solidified and you went, grab that, we're going to make that canon. That was a cool little thing. So yeah, anyway, there's another little side note.
No, it's really nice when the world starts to build itself in you.
Right,
That's really nice.
right.
Milford would know that term then, Yarkers.
Milford would indeed know that term. And I'll also, as a little heads up to you and the audience and what have you, I have been planning a Shadowfell scenario that does involve Milford Brixton. So there is this to consider. It will involve the player characters from Vaingate as alternative characters who are living in the domain of dread, the Shadowfell, and will be working with Milford Brixton. So there's a little bit of a heads up. Those characters will probably be Shadar Kai, and they may be in service to the Raven Queen. But don't tell anybody. We wouldn't want this getting public because, the server wouldn't be able to cope with the amount of traffic, I'm sure.
Right, Russell, just
Watch
as a
everybody
point
sneaking.
as a point of contention, not within me, as it's within the greater lore of D&D.
Yeah.
I remember, because one of my favorite podcasts of all time is called the Dragon Cast, or I can't fucking remember now.
Okay.
Let me actually look it up. But one of the players on it, the Dungeon Cast, sorry, one of the hosts, he's been playing since 4E, and he often when he's talking about lore, refers to 4E as how it created and redid things, and how the Raven Queen was a new thing then, and
Right.
then her lore got twisted in an unpleasant way for 5E.
Right.
So, what is the Raven Queen in Sidariel? Because I have both those other two conceptions in my head, and
Right.
I like 4E a lot more, her idea.
Right. Well, to be honest, my research from regarding the Raven Queen, a lot of it is done through YouTube videos. Jordan with the PH is silent. Is that guy? Do you know the guy I'm talking about?
Yeah.
My conception of the Raven Queen is a little different because I'm coming at this where I'm trying to mesh my own I guess, Kabbalistic views with the D&D lore, and I'm trying to sort the signal from the noise as far as there's a lot of lore that I generally ignore because to me it's noise. It doesn't actually add anything. It's not archetypal, and it doesn't have any framework to make any further sense of it from. Because to me, Dungeons and Dragons or any role-playing game is kind of it's a psychological exercise and a journeying into a story as a narrative together as a group. And it's going to affect our dream lives. It's going to affect our subconscious and our world views. So not having extraneous material in there bouncing around without any good reason is not worth it to me. So for me, I see the Raven Queen. This is a little secret between us. The Raven Queen and Sehanine Moonbow are sisters in Siddhartha.
Oh.
They are the Isis and Nephthys twins.
That's really, really interesting.
From Egyptian mythology. So the Raven Queen, Nephthys, and there's also a kind of a signature of Ma'at there as well, who is the Egyptian goddess of truth. To me, the Raven Queen is a lot like the Egyptian goddess of truth, who Ma'at was represented by a vulture, generally speaking, and that sounds quite dark and scary because vultures, they eat dead things and so on and so forth, but they peel back the impermanent stuff and get to the truth, the consistent, universal, self-evident truth that is there behind the less material sort of forms, if you know what I'm saying. And so the transformation through death as well. So Ma'at's symbol was a feather, which connects to the Raven Queen, and the vulture tangentially connects to the Raven Queen for me as well. The ravens, vultures, they're birds, they represent death to some degree. So there's a kind of psychological imagery connection for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see, and I don't see the Raven Queen just because she's a goddess of death. She's not Lord Soth. She's not some sort of demon. She's not a fiend. She's not out to wipe out anything, and she's not a goddess of undeath either. So she's not a force of good, so to speak, but she is a force of balance. And if you consider the feather as a symbol of balance, the scales of balance, the Egyptian scales of death, weighing the heart, those rites and rituals and images. So for me, the Raven Queen is about that. She's about truth. She's about weighing your soul at the end of your life at some point. So that's kind of how I see that relationship. I don't know how that meshes with the D&D lore so well. Maybe you can give me some heads up on that.
We can ignore the D&D lore entirely because I really like what you've just said. I think 4E is she was a I think she was something very similar. Or no, she was if I remember correctly, which I very likely do not. She had an origin very, very similar to the goddess of magic. I forget her name.
Mistral.
Mistra, yeah.
Yeah, Mistra, yeah.
Where she was a human, or rather an elf, that ascended to godhood.
Right, that's the story I've heard too, yeah.
Yeah. And then within 5e, she became this... She was an elven deity that tried to balance the scales between what Lolth and Corellon, and as a result, because she didn't pick a side, she got thrown out.
Right.
So she took some of her, in a very Lolthish move, took some of her followers with her into the Shadowfell.
Right.
And they were all changed by that.
Into the Shadar-kai
yes.
race.
I've watered down the lore quite a lot,
right.
Based on what little I remember.
But that's the gist of it.
I think that's the gist of it, yeah.
Right, and whereas in 4th edition, she wasn't originally an elven queen or something, and she rose to power, and she stole secrets, and she did lots of stuff, and conquered people, and blah, 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 did things.
She was a really much more fleshed out character within 4th,
and she literally, did she not actually kill the god of death and become the god of death by doing that?
Yeah, she tried to become the god of death, but the other gods stopped her from doing it.
Was it Nergal, or there was Kalimvor was the other god of death?
I think Calivor's a human god of death. It may have been Nergal.
Right. And now I think Nergal serves her or some shit. I don't remember. I don't honestly pay too much depth. I'm very much a cherry picker when it comes to lore, and I insert my own stuff whenever I want to.
Yeah.
But that being said, I do try to make these things feel like they mesh, at least in the microcosm of the game itself. You know, you wouldn't know any different. At least most of the time, until you start playing avatars of deities, which I don't know what the fuck I was thinking when I came up with that idea.
Yeah. You gave us too much power.
Too much power. Too much
Power.
Well, there's something you said that I really like, and I think is kind of interesting, is where, you said the vulture, and it's a dark thing, but also I don't particularly like how gods of death are evil in most modern conceptions.
Right.
It's something that is so frustrating to me.
Right.
Because it's one of the most natural parts of life.
Right.
And yeah, it's scary to us because we cannot see beyond the veil of death. But
it's fear of the unknown.
Yeah, but I'm not a massive fan of a god of death who's this big evil thing. It's not. Why should it be?
Right.
When, for example, in Baldur's Gate, there are 3 gods of death that are preeminent there, and they are the more violent things that lead to death. For like your player character's parent is the god of murder. That itself is an evil act, and that makes sense. But death is neutral.
Right.
There is no inherent good or evil or anything inside it.
I think the Raven Queen is billed as being neutral in the game as well.
Yeah.
But not so much like Nergal, I think, might have been chaotic evil or something. I'm not sure. I would have to do some research on that. But I totally agree. Death shouldn't be an evil thing. But that being said, I mean, I don't really run with alignments anyway, to be fair. So, but we're talking about the game system. So,
in general, yeah. I mean, I also don't particularly like I like alignments as a way to inform your character at the very beginning, but once they start to really become a person, sticking to alignments it boxes you, it keeps you from growing.
Well, I think, I mean, as a dungeon master, having alignments in the game, especially when it comes to NPCs or monsters in a module, particularly in a module. If I'm running Dragonlance, for example, which I intend to do maybe later this year or next year.
I look forward to playing in it.
Right. If I'm doing that, I need, you need to look at a stat block and go, okay, this guy is lawful neutral. Okay, so I know what lawful neutral is kind of intuitively. I know how to roleplay this guy. He's not out to kill anyone, but basically all it really tells me is, what does this character want?
Yeah.
That's actually what the alignment should say. It tells you the objective of the character. That's what it should tell you, because it's much more clear and it's much easier to roleplay than you are neutral evil. What the fuck does that even mean? I mean, we can deconstruct that and it will take us an hour, but we will argue and we will never come to a conclusion. Whereas my character wants money to pay for his wife's surgery. My character wants a thing to do a thing for a reason that is personal. Now I care about your character, and you should care about your character too. That's what I'm getting at. And these are tools that come from acting and storytelling and filmmaking and playwriting and novel writing and basically just generally narrative, that as role players for some reason we don't think they're too intellectual for us or something. We have to have these dumbed down mechanics that tell us things. And again, to me, this goes back, and this is only in Dungeons and Dragons, to be honest. Most other games don't use alignments like this, not anymore. And this goes back to the source of D&D, which is, of course, wargaming, and very simplified kind of role-playing where you needed to very clearly know these guys are evil, so we can kill them. We can justifiably murder hobo this bunch of kobolds because they're evil.
And it's such a... It removes agency from them. And I think that's something that's really nice that they've done over the last 2 years with some of the evil races in player character races, rather, like your orcs and your
goblins, drow.
Yeah, because it they're not human, but it dehumanizes them. It just turns them into this template of the other that must be destroyed, and it's so. There isn't a point. Why should I care about something that is simply evil? Why is it evil?
Right, exactly. Why is it evil? I mean, we can give you a reason for why it's evil, why you might want to kill it. You know, fuck cages, for example, or something like that. But
the fuck cages, and it made me very uncomfortable, and there was a reason it should have made me uncomfortable. Every reason to be uncomfortable about it, and that's something I cared about because it was, I mean, based on what we know about sex and consent and all of that.
Right.
It's wrong.
But did it, out of curiosity, did it automatically damn all goblins for you?
It did not.
Right.
It damned the goblins in front of me.
Right, specific goblins.
Or that specific goblin.
And there were other goblins who you actually wanted to free, and in other cases you have freed in the game.
Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it? So it's not black and white, and it's actually more fun when it's not black and white, in my opinion. That's what I'm learning from that.
And I've also found that if you play many times, as Russell knows, I played different characters in the same world.
Right.
And in one character frame, I've completely hated somebody and wanted to get him down. But then when I was another character who came to understand that so-called evil character, I was like his best friend and his backup buddy.
Right, you're thinking of like Jason Newbury, for example, in our vampire game, the psychotic character that's kind of based on the character in American Psycho. What's his name? That guy. Anyway.
Tyler Durden was in Fight Club.
No, not Tyler Durden. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so yeah, you meet a character as one character, and then you meet them as a different character, and your reaction and relationship to that NPC is different depending on which character you're playing, and that's always fascinating, isn't it? Because your point of view's been switched.
Jordan, how are you feeling about, like, you know, the alignment thing? Because that's something that is gradually being eschewed entirely in oned&d, and that's, you know, good and necessary. As somebody that has been also playing since older editions.
Right.
I think for me, I've never really played with alignment. I've never seen I've never seen the use in it. There's kind of, you kind of figure out who your character is as you're playing them. You get the label of lawful good, for example, but your character, once you actually get to know them, is completely different.
I mean, it does kind of give you a spectrum in which you can search for answers about who your character is, but you know that beyond here is off limits, and beyond here is off limits. So you kind of gives you a torch to shine into the darkness as to how you want to play your character, but you still need objectives.
I agree with both of you. Both of what you're saying is right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Barry, like, have you met a character in any of our games that you've considered to be just straight up evil?
Funnily enough, no. No, not straight up evil.
Right, not like pure evil, not like elemental evil, just...
No.
Okay. And...
No.
It's funny you say that, because, like, what was it? The gentleman in that northern city we were in, that murdered
Balconard?
In Balconard, yeah. The man that was very much like Baron something in Dune.
Duke Leto or something? Oh, I don't know.
No, not Duke Leto.
Baron
the guy that killed Zin and...
you're talking about Horatio...
Yes, Pyrax.
Pyrax, right, yeah.
Yeah, because I would say he's quite cut from what I know as a player and what Adric knows as a, you know, character. He's quite cut and dried evil.
Right, and he's come into contact with a number of different groups of players actually over time, and everybody reacts to him that way too. He is actually probably the most closest to straight up evil that I have, but he's also got secrets that you guys don't know yet, so I can't get into that, unfortunately.
I cannot fathom, as a character from what I know of him so far, anything that would redeem him.
How would you redeem that character? Well, I mean, do you remember, Barry, in our very, very first vampire game, you spent many years hating Al Capone?
Yes.
I mean, you
Yes.
hated that guy. You wanted him dead. You were out to get him fucking dead.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
And then eventually, there was a point when you were doing surveillance on Al Capone in the vampire game in Chicago, where I recall you guys started to turn your opinion. You started feeling sorry for him.
Yeah, we did. We were surveilling him while he was talking to another great role player that is a friend of mine. And she was talking to him about what was going on and everything else and what was he going to do. And the soft side of him came out. And all we'd ever known is the bastard side or the killing side.
The beat you senseless with the butt of a rifle.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody's popped out. Is that Michael?
Michael will be back in a second. He just needs to do something.
I see. Yes. So that's fascinating. So which character? I mean, Jordan, have you had the opportunity yet to really hate any NPCs?
I haven't really had a chance to hate an NPC yet. I think there's a little bit of a dislike between myself and Milmore Glass.
Right.
But that's just because I know him.
Right. That's just
as
friction.
my character. It's just friction as me being a daughter of Twilight and him being him. But no, I don't think I've had a chance to actually really hate an NPC yet.
Right.
I think I've got some backstory with a few of you, like the Barakyle Envoy. I don't particularly like the whole, just in general, them.
Right.
But you could get to know a member of the Barakyle Envoy, and they could turn out to be a lovely person. You don't know.
You don't know.
Mm.
Well, curiously, just as a sidebar here, I just changed the tags on our stream to just chatting to see what would happen. Madame Nozuli says Russell should resurrect Hamir for Gilra. Actually, Jordan, you might know who Hamir is. I'm wondering, because you've been watching Vaingate for a while.
I have been watching. I have not got up to Hamir yet.
You haven't got up to Hamir.
So
okay.
I'm now mildly curious about Hamir, and what I've heard now sounds a bit concerning. But
Sounds a bit concerning.
Is Hamir going to be making an appearance in Sunfall?
Well, we don't know. To be perfectly fair, I mean, Sunfall and Vaingate Chronicles they're not completely lined up. They're kind of existing in a weird space where if I need an event to inform the other story, I can line them up more specifically, but I don't want to make that decision until I have to. And as a DM, you'll appreciate that. Never make a decision that you don't have to make until you have to make it, because that you keep your options open to the last minute. So, and that way sometimes your decisions become almost intuitive, or somehow there's a little bit more spontaneity to that. That's how I sort of look at it anyway. Michael, you switched places. What's going on?
Oh shit! I had to run away briefly.
You had to run away briefly. Fair enough. So, yeah, Michael, have you? So you would say that what's his face? Horatio Pyrex was your most hated NPC?
So far, my most hated NPC. Mostly because he's the only one that I've disliked that I haven't been able to kill yet.
Right. You've disliked others, but you've killed them.
I have been able to end them pretty swiftly.
Even Ilgarax.
Yeah, I mean, Elgarax was fun. To this day, I think Elgarax has been my favorite encounter with, an opposing force entirely. Because it got so epic so quickly.
Right. That did take off, didn't it?
Yeah, and I love that it ended in what was essentially just a slugfest at the end.
Right. Have you seen that episode, Jordan?
I have not seen that
You've not seen
episode
that
yet.
episode, right? Okay, well, there's a dragon fight.
It is my favorite encounter with anything ever, honestly.
Wow. Impressive. So, who's running games besides, me at the moment? You guys DMing at all?
Not so much currently. I've got a couple ideas rattling around my head for Overarms and Monster of the Week. Monster of the Week is one that I've got based, kind of inspired by what you've done, Russell, and partially inspired by Rick Riordan's unified Egyptian, Norse, Greek mythology world.
Okay.
So it's inspired by those two things, which I don't know if anybody here besides me has read any of Rick Riordan's books, which I really enjoy. It's young adult fiction.
Well, it might be a good surprise then if they haven't.
I mean, I've cherry picked ideas from it.
Right.
But you would be very hard pressed to find the exact thing.
So, are you looking for a channel upon which to stream your game when you decide to play it?
Potentially, I don't know.
And would you be looking for players?
But potentially, I haven't even started writing. It's just been noodling around in my head. But so it's probably something that's going to happen.
Because I was nagging Joe the other day about the idea that she could DM a game on Rolestream, and I know Jordan was quite keen to watch that. I think she's afraid she's going to fall flat on her face because she hasn't done a lot of DMing before. But I don't think that's really a problem at all. I mean, we all fall flat on our faces. I've fallen flat on my face in front of everybody on stream many times now. You've all witnessed it. We've even retconned an entire episode at one point. Because
didn't happen. What episode?
We don't talk about that. That. That is lost to the archives of the Vaingate Chronicles, and we will never speak of it again. But falling on your face is part of the process, and I think the thing is, what we would do is we would bill the episode as Learn a Dungeon Master. Here is a
Michael's
new
baby
DM
dungeon master
having
time.
a go at DMing. There's nothing wrong with that. People want to see other people learning to DM. It makes them feel better about themselves too. Everybody should have an opportunity to try it, and here's a great chance for people to see a new DM learning the ropes, figuring it out for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not going to be.
That's something that I might do then. I might write up and plan a quick one shot for Monster of the Week and see how it goes.
That'd be cool. That'd be so cool.
So cool.
Very cool.
Same with Joe. I think it'd be real cool to see her DMing.
Yeah.
And see how her DMing style is different to, say, Russell's.
Right, and nobody would need to do it for long if they didn't want to. It could be a one-shot or a three-shot thing. If it was going well, we could make it a campaign. I don't know. But, obviously I have to have time to be around to stream it, and if not, possibly even play in it, preferably.
Yes, of course.
Absolutely play in it, because you haven't played in how long?
Yeah, I don't get to play Dungeons and Dragons or any role-playing games, really, these days. It's all DM, so, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll post the Monster of the Week book in one of our chats, and you can have a quick look-ski, because I think you'd really enjoy it.
Okay. We will have a look.
Yes, absolutely. Jordan, have you DM'd?
I have not DM'd.
But you do have the DM's guide now.
I do have the DM's guide.
DMG.
DM guide, the DMG. I have DMG, and I have pretty much like every other book you could think of,
including the Bible.
Including the Bible. Yes, the Bible is in my D&D bag book.
Jordan, is this a good time for us to preempt our cunning plan?
Cunning plan?
What's that?
Jordan, you should know what I'm talking about. The cunning plan that we were talking about. We could show the audience and other people, specifically in the stream, what's happening.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay,
this is...
I'm gonna straight up message you on Discord, because this is your...
What was happening?
This is Jordan's thing. that
What
is-
are we in
that
for?
He's considering, and
Oh, I am in suspense. What are we doing?
Yeah,
Shows
me
how much
too,
I've been paying
me too.
attention. That so am I, apparently. I know exactly what you're talking about.
right now you know what I'm talking about. So
Now I know what you're talking about. Talk by show. Oh, I figured that one out. Yeah. So, me and Russell were having a bit of a chat about
Yeah.
the D&D books and who should have them, and especially with Player's Handbook is one that I think any D&D player should have. It is the Bible, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking and having a good old yarn about it as I drove him to our face-to-face campaign, and even in the middle of the face-to-face campaign, we were talking about it.
yeah,
Getting a book for a certain player that we all respect and admire and love.
Oh, Barry.
Yes, Barry. Not you, Russell. You have every book. Look behind you. I mean, look behind you. You
oh,
have,
yeah,
like,
there's
a book right
there
there.
they are. Yeah, I see.
So this Wednesday, myself and Russell are planning to go to your house, Barry. That's the special guest that you were expecting. To give you the players the book that is in my hands that you cannot see properly
It
because
looks like that.
it looks like that one. It looks like that one.
You will be the proud owner of a PHP.
Yep, the PHP.
HP.
Sadly, it's going to be out of date in about 2 years, but that doesn't matter.
It's not better.
So, you know, but at least you'll be up to date for now. And the good thing is it will be backwards compatible, and it will be about 95% still accurate, actually. I suspect there won't be too much that's... I don't know, we'll see. They are going to spit out a new player's handbook with the new core races and classes, I guess, so... we'll see.
I'd like there's a lot of errata that needs to be done.
Yeah, they're going to have to do a lot of work. A lot of work indeed. Indeed.
Yes.
Any particular classes or races or traits or what have you that you're interested in seeing what they do with them?
Honestly, because the fighter and the barbarian are my two favorite classes. I just think there's so much story to be done there, and there's so much fun role play to be had with them. Honestly,
Right.
and they're kind of perfect. I can't see any way that they could be improved. I mean, there are some things. For example, like I would like there to be a extra bit of damage that is done for the barbarian, because after a certain level cap, they don't do as much as certain other things.
Right.
But I'm interested to see how they hone those things a lot better. Also, the berserker subclass that needs a big old fix.
Bit of an overhaul, you feel?
Yeah, especially
Well,
considering
everybody's
like
playing
it's-
bear totem barbarians for a reason.
Yeah, well, all the my two favorite barbarian classes are the beast, which I'm playing as Peleus right now, which is a lot of fun. It's one of the most flexible things I've been able to play, and the chaotic magic barbarian, where when you rage, you get one of 8
Produces
essentially
an
cantrips.
effect, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
which
what
is
Alcas has, isn't it, Jordan? Is that the effect Alcas has? He's got like a wild magic table surge whenever he rages?
No, that's Murag, our
Oh, sorry, Morag.
barbarian
Yes, you're right,
in
Morag.
our face-to-face campaign.
It's Sean, same player, different character.
Same-
Yeah,
Different character.
yeah.
Joe has just come saying that's fair, Michael, but she's a cleric for life. Hashtag cleric for life.
Hashtag cleric for life. That's hilarious.
which is funny considering that Joe, that you've played a fighter and you didn't succumb to being a cool ass fighter forever like me.
Well, she couldn't. She'd already created Goodale, Dala Talandaran she of much lore and she's deeply connected to the game.
Hey, sis.
Things can happen. She can die.
Barry says, "Hey sis," haha, because of course their characters are siblings. Mwahaha. So yes, interesting. Now there's going to be some new. The thing about changing the inspiration rules too. Did you hear?
No, I didn't.
So here's the thing. They are talking about if you roll a 1 or a natural 20, giving you automatically inspiration.
I quite like it, especially for like a nat 1,
Right.
because it feels so bad.
Right.
But it feels again like a learning opportunity for your character.
Because they're saying that people are getting inspiration and they're not spending them, which
Yeah.
I don't find that so much in Vanguard Chronicles, because we've got audience members giving players inspiration non-stop, and so there's this constant flow of inspiration going through the game. But most players are hoarding their inspiration because they don't have that mechanic. They can only get it by the DM. But now, if it comes from a natural 1 or a natural 20, and you will also be able to give that inspiration immediately away if you've got inspiration to another player.
Which again, that's also great. I love that.
Yeah. Now, the controversial rule that I think is controversial is that they want to scrap Dungeon Masters critting on a natural 20.
I don't like that because it's... And I think a lot of people will feel the same. Yeah, a monster crit hitting you feels bad, but you need that element of danger. It's important.
So the reasons...
I got to agree.
Yeah. Now, my reaction was exactly the same, especially at the beginning. After watching Jeremy Crawford talk about it, though, I had to reconsider it a little bit. His point of view is, first of all, at level 1, you will die. If something crits, anything crits, you will basically die.
Yeah.
There's very little chance of survival against any kind of crit from any kind of creature at level 1. However, further to that, at higher levels, the higher challenge rating monsters in the game often have legendary actions or actions that recharge. And those recharging powers, like for example, a dragon has a breath weapon that recharges, and the DM rolls a d6. And on a 5 or a 6 on any given turn, that breath weapon will recharge. If it doesn't, if you don't get the 5 or 6, it's simply not available to the creature to use on that turn. But when it does recharge on a 5 or a 6, or whether it's every other turn, or whatever the rules specifically are for that creature, then they get access to this particular power that's like a legendary weapon, like a breath weapon or something, that does a lot of damage, like a crit would. That's where they're trying to kind of consider the crits for the monsters to be.
Yeah,
I nearly killed a player character a couple of weeks ago in a one-shot where I had it was a Shisuva, critted a 3rd level character in a one-shot. In fact, it was Jordan, you know Jack from Questbook. It was his girlfriend, also Jack.
Oh no, also Jack.
And so I think she was unconscious after I crit hitted her for like 50 hit points of damage in one turn. And I was like, yeah, that was a little bit overpowered. Maybe I should have pulled my punches there, but you know, the rules as written, that's what it did.
Okay, I can see where you're coming from. I can definitely see where you're coming from with that.
But that being said, the danger of getting wiped out by a dragon in the first round should be fairly high. It's a fucking dragon, dude.
Yeah.
That's, otherwise, where are the consequences? Where are the stakes of the story if you don't have some potential failure?
Yeah, that's the thing, though. That's what I get a thrill from. Right. Fighting a dragon and beating the bugger, because I know he can clean me up with his paw.
Hey, Talk's back with us. Welcome, Talk.
Hey.
We're just having a bit of a chat here about Dungeons and Dragons. If you hadn't put that together by now.
What is it? It's like a couple weeks ago with our alt characters. We're all level 9, and what was it? We were going against a young dragon.
Yeah.
It wasn't an adult, was it? It still almost murdered my barbarian. And Peleus barbarians are hard to kill. Barbarians are very hard to kill. But he still almost finished off Peleus. And that was just a young white dragon.
Right.
So they should feel always like this epic encounter.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And dragons particularly. I mean, the game is called Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yeah.
So they have to be dragons, but they also have to be kind of scary. That's the whole point of dragons. What are you saying,
It makes
Barry?
you think more tactically as well.
Right.
You have to think about what you're doing against this man-buggering thing, you know?
Right. I mean, speaking of tactics, I really enjoyed watching you play Rokan on Dagdagiel on Thursday night. This dude, I mean, Barry's character in Dagdagiel, he's just been kidnapped at the end of the previous session, and he wakes up inside a yurt, chained to the post, basically. And he's stripped naked, and there's lots of kind of menacing from these red fangs of Shargas orcs, and he has to sort of get his way out of there. Meanwhile, the player characters are coming in to save him at the same time, and it was a very interesting, intense situation. Good use of things like Zephyr Strike and Hunter's Mark, really effective in that scenario. Yes.
Zephyr Strike was one of my favorite ranger spells because there is so much flavor to it. It feels epic. As a first level spell, it feels suitably epic.
Yeah, that is pretty epic. That whole ignoring opportunity attacks with Zephyr Strike is quite handy, and the whole you can dash for free basically. It's really useful when you've just killed someone.
Yeah.
And you need to get to somebody else, but you don't have any movement or something like that.
And that extra D8 force damage
for
moving very quickly doesn't hurt either.
Oh, and you get advantage on that attack if you want it. You know, you get to
exactly.
Yeah. I was noticing in the Unearthed Arcana. This is the playtest material. It's called Unearthed Arcana for the rogue. I believe at higher levels they're moving some of the traits around. One of their traits, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but they have a trait that allows them to get sneak attack advantage automatically at like level. I think it's a level 11 trait or something like that. It's going to be.
I can't remember, but I do recall.
I'm not sure if it's already in the game. Maybe it already is there. I don't get to play with a lot of really high level characters all the time, but interesting.
For the rogue, sneak attack requires you to either have advantage or someone near you. It's not a very well defined rule. And
they've really refined that, and further to that, they've made it so that there is a class trait at a higher level that does give you free advantage. You automatically will get that advantage. Anyway, so yeah.
Which makes sense, because by then you should be an expert at stabbing someone in the back from in front of them.
Right. Welcome, Wildheart. Nice to have you with us.
Welcome, Wildheart. Welcome to the Talkie Talkies.
If you don't know, Wildheart is now playing in our Vampire the Masquerade game on Sunday nights. So you can meet Wildheart tomorrow night on stream if you are interested.
Collecting a bunch of people there.
Yeah.
Really?
It's sort of creating a bit of a community, really. It's kind of interesting to see how it all pans out.
That's kind of the ideal, though.
Yeah. Now, if you don't know, by the way, Michael Bache here is planning to do some streaming.
Yeah. Well, I'm. If you feel so inclined to find me, I'm Slapdabache on here, because my last name is Bache and my voice is deep. So Slapdabache, that's the joke.
Slapdabache.
And I'm working out some tech issues because my laptop is pretty good for voice acting because it's lovely and quiet. It's not so good for the streaming, so I'm just working out tech issues to make it absolutely watchable.
What are you planning to stream? Yeah.
So I'm planning on, things that will take advantage of my voice acting talents. So it's going to be top-down role-playing games like Disco Elysium, which is one of the best written games I've played so far. It's fucking hilarious. And reading stories, because I've going over the internet and exploring it, a lot of people are up late and they're like, I just wish someone would read to me, and I can be that person.
Right. We can have like ASMR, Bache ASMR.
Yeah, I can turn my mic way the hell up and get in, and everyone can listen to those horrible mouth noises.
Oh yes, please. I would totally fall asleep to your voice.
Oh, thank you, Jordan.
We're going to do I've been meaning to start a channel, a whole separate channel, based on ASMR, but it would be ASMR ASMR.
Go on.
So it's
I love it.
D&D ASMR. And so I would do things like, you know, get my dice, you know, and we could do. Now, Barry, I don't know if do you know what ASMR is? I mean, I'm guessing you probably don't. It's one of these weird things that's just kind of crept out of the internet recently.
No.
ASMR is this strange trend. I say strange, but I actually listen to it, and it's kind of scary that I do. You get people making noises on their microphones, whether it's clicking noises or scratching noises or mouth noises, sexy noises.
So they'll turn the gain right up to make it sensitive, really, really sensitive.
Right, and it's very tactile, and people find it really soothing, and it's become a phenomenon. And there's literally millions of people listening to ASMR. I've been listening to it myself. It's good for when you want to go to sleep. You just put some ASMR on the background. My wife loves it. She's listening to it all the time. She probably listens to it while we're streaming because it's probably more interesting than my nonsense, but... So yeah,
which says that the eating ones make her gag.
Which one? Who? What? Eating ones make me gag. Right.
Oh, the
right.
mukbangs. Oh yeah, they gross me out, man.
Right.
I love them. I love the sound of like eating.
Can you hear the sand in the hourglass? No, probably not. It's not very sensitive for that. But yeah, ASMR. ASMR. Who wants to join me on this venture?
I don't know if I could. It would make me so angry. When I listen to ASMR, it actually makes me super mad.
Does it? That is hilarious.
I really like listening to it.
I can't hear it. I can't hear your hand noises.
That's just meant to be dice.
There it is.
Oh god, that's
there
loud.
it is.
Fuck,
There it is.
Jesus. I'm peeking.
Kicked in. Yeah, right. Dice noises, pen and paper noises.
Like D&D ASMR is interesting because like the clicky clacks of dice is a genuinely nice sound.
You could also do things like you could get swords and sharpen them.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
You know, that kind of stuff could be fun. Weird little medieval noises from medieval periods, taverns, and I don't know, stuff that like have no modern sounds.
So someone dying of TB, preventable TB in the background.
TB. I thought you said TV for a moment there. I was like, that's pretty common.
Dying of preventable TV. Oh god. Oh god, someone dropped a CRT monitor on my head.
Ah!
Oh, is someone where'd you get a CRT monitor? Oh fuck.
Wolfskin Witch said Michael be like rage ASMR.
Yeah, all I would do is make monster noises.
Right. Oh, you could totally do that. That would be cool. Actually,
do that.
I have an idea. I have an idea for a game. I don't know that we could do this live though because of the technical problems. If we could solve the technical issues, I'd love to do this. And that is every player has some kind of musical instrument. It doesn't have to be something amazing. It doesn't have, probably not a guitar or anything like really too intricate, but something they could make noises with, whether it's a bell, whether it's a
Peleus is a
drum.
flute, and I've got a harmonica.
But basically, what I'm sort of suggesting is like when players are in a scenario, everybody should be focused on making the soundtrack if they're not talking.
Mm-hmm.
That keeps everybody really focused and on theme with the story. And it even gives you a little bit of guidance with the story. Like it's like as a DM myself, I've found that when I'm playing music, and I don't get to do this on stream very much because I can't control it very easily, but when I am in control of the music, I often find that the music begins to guide my ideas and story as well. Sometimes characters come out of it, sometimes whole scenarios come out of it. Suddenly there's a big crash in the music and like, okay, these guys burst through the door and this thing happens, or rockets come flying down from the sky and take out your Jeep, or whatever the hell game scenario you happen to be in. But yeah, so the idea that the players would have instruments and be able to feed the story, especially when they're not role-playing. When it's and in combat, imagine, I mean, you spend half of combat, more than half of combat, probably 3/4 of combat as a player, waiting for your turn.
Yeah.
You know, what can you be doing?
I like the idea of it, but I think if you had 3 out of 4 players playing instruments at the same time, I think it would be cacophonous in the worst way possible.
You could be right. You could be right.
It's an interesting idea, though. There's some good exploring to be done there to make that work.
Yeah, and I think it's a matter partly of having the right instruments too, not noisy crashing things. They would have to be more like things like a Tibetan bowl or something might be a cool instrument to have, or very light cymbals. I don't know. Anyway, that's something to think about. Think about. Wolfskin Witch said, yeah, hearing blades clash together and Adric's hammer connecting would be awesome. Yeah, we could have like just people doing sound effects.
Well, the thing is with what is it? Sirenscape. Like, there's a lot of sound effects that are apparent here.
Right.
Let me see if I can find.
Because you do have those sorts of sound effects in Sirenscape, but what you really need is a totally separate technical audio engineer running the sound. Because I mean, I'm watching.
I can only do so much.
Exactly, I'm watching you do it, Michael, and you're trying to role play and do sound, and that's too hard. I'm trying to DM, and I tried doing sound as well, and it was way over my head.
So I really enjoy playing with the sound with this because it helps me be in the scene quite well.
Yeah.
You're so right.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the right sound to keep me in, and if it keeps me in, I'm trusting that it's keeping everybody else involved as well.
Right, and it's technical. Not only do you have to do the technical side of it, which is all the clicking and saving of things and prepping of things and the finding of levels and adjusting the levels and monitoring the levels and listening to the soundtrack so that you know that it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. You're also having to make some pretty on-the-fly aesthetic decisions.
Yeah.
You know, we're in battle. I need to find the battle song.
Yeah, and sometimes the battle songs that they've got in here are so wimpy. They're so lackluster.
Right.
And you want something that is really crunchy.
You want the Witcher soundtrack.
Yeah, but
you want something that is. You need something that. Yeah.
And I use the Witcher soundtrack in our Sunfall campaign sometimes, and that's I love our face-to-face game, our Sunfall campaign, because of these reasons, that it's uncensored and it's straight up pure chemistry, you know? But then I get home and I'm like, well, I don't have a recording of it, goddammit. I can't go back through the video and watch it for moments or check consistency or whatever, that type of stuff. Not that I do that very often, but, you know, you probably tell that.
But also, listen to this picking lock sound that I don't know what it sounds like.
Go.
So I'm waiting for it to play.
So are we. We are
me
also
too.
waiting for it to play.
I'm clicking it and it's not. Come on.
We are also.
No. Computer says no.
Computer says no.
Okay, so the pipes of haunting are playing just fine.
Your lockpick slides into the lock. You twist the lockpick. The door clicks open.
Milford would be heartily disappointed.
Oh, there it is. It's just very, very soft. Listen very close. I mean, just stop the music.
Turn the music down, yeah.
It is very, very soft.
It is, I hear it. But it's like a jingling noise, right?
Yeah.
Like keys or coins in a bag or something like that.
Yeah, you'd be much better off just having coins in a bag. Oh, here's armor collapsing.
Yeah, Wolfskin's saying the background music totally sets the scene and mood, especially during the battles. Talk says Doom Tune. Not
Doom
sure.
Tune is very good.
I don't know that. What's that?
It's the Doom music. Doom, dun, 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 whatever the fuck the Doom thing sounds like. Not what I just did.
Right. I found many years ago when we used to play Masquerade all the time, it was our main game, I used to play the Fight Club soundtrack endlessly.
Oh, yeah.
That was a great piece of music. Lots of good music in there. And also the Chemical Brothers, but that's a different genre. Anyway, so, who else has something to talk about on this fine day here in New Zealand as we're discussing Dungeons and Dragons, oned&d?
I do actually have. I'm looking at the PDF again.
Yeah.
There are two more like species changes that I think are quite interesting. Or one that I find a bit lackluster,
Yeah.
and one that I think is really really cool, and that is firstly the Dragonborn.
Right.
So the Dragonborn recently went through some changes with Fizban, where they divided it into 3 distinct races within the species.
Right.
Where you have your chromatic, and they have their own specific things that make them special.
Right.
The metallic within their own thing, and then the gem Dragonborn,
Right.
which are very psychic. So within this, they've brought it back to just the chromatic and metallic for the moment, and I'm sure they'll bring gem into this. But instead of giving them all their special things, they've divided it, and they've just brought 3 specific feats. They fixed the breath weapon, which from the last thing, which is great. So it does 1d10 damage, and which it gets increased to 2d10 at the 5th level, and so on and so forth until 4d10 at 7th level, which is great. They have damage resistance to the type determined by their ancestry, and at level 5 they gain Draconic Flight, which is just spectral wings, which lasts for 10 minutes.
Right.
Which I think is pretty good. I don't know how to feel about it, because I really liked the metallic and chromatic dragons and the gem Dragonborn all getting their special thing. But I can also see the rationale behind this.
Right.
Because the breath weapon is already kind of enough. And lastly, and this I think is fantastic, are the Goliaths. So it's theming them not so much a specific race of giant kin in the ordering, but rather a watered down descendant of
Giant
true
kin.
giants.
Right.
So depending on the type of giant that your Goliath is descended from, whether they're cloud, fire, etc.,
Right.
they will have their own specific feat. So Cloud's Jaunt,
Nice.
as a bonus action, they magic teleport, very trickstery, great.
Right. So we have different tribes of Goliath now based on the
Yes.
giant types. So cloud
so-
giants, fire giants, ice giants, etc.
Exactly.
Hill giants. What else do we have?
Storm,
Storm
Stone, Hill,
giants.
Frost, Fire, and Cloud.
Right, there you go. Right. So each of those is going to be a type of Goliath now.
Yes,
That
which I
is
think is fantastic.
Really cool. That is really cool.
One thing that I don't like that they've done now is this new feat, which it treads into territory that Unearthed Arcana class is doing, but that the Rune Knight does.
Right.
Large form. Starting at 5th level, you gain the ability to supernaturally grow. As a bonus action, you change your size to large, provided you're in a big enough space.
Right.
This transformation lasts 10 minutes or until you end it as a bonus action. During that duration, you have advantage on strength checks, speed increases by 10 feet. Once you use this trait, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So the Rune Knight already does that. So it feels like there's less of a reason to play a Rune Knight as a Goliath.
Right.
Because that's one of your key features. It doesn't give you a bonus to damage, but it does the other things it does.
Right.
And for longer.
So do you feel that is an imposition on the Rune Knight, or do you feel that the Rune Knight is trying to take something away from the Goliath?
I think the Rune Knight is and there's a barbarian thing that does something very similar to this. Though that is also Unearthed Arcana. I feel like the Rune Knight is a magical callback, adoption of giant power, and I think that should be what it is. I don't particularly like the idea of Goliaths having this, because they're defining themselves as the bastard offspring of true giants.
Right.
So having them get closer to true giants doesn't feel right. It would be almost like the Dragonborn becoming more dragon-like. I don't know, they gain a legendary action once per day. I don't like that for them.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm being very clear with my thought there.
No, yeah, I mean... So the other thing that muddles up the Dragonborn thing, right, is that many, many years ago, back in 2nd edition, we had Dragonlance, and they had the Draconian race, which were enemies, mostly, in Dragonlance.
That's also a thing in Fizban.
Right, and they brought it back because they knew they were going to be introducing Dragonlance fairly shortly. And so the Dragonborn and the Draconians, and then we've got kobolds, who are all different versions of dragon people that come from dragons, worship dragons, have some connection to draconic bloodlines and ancestry. Really? Do we need 3 different types of Dragonborn?
It depends on your the way that I like the way that again, I can't speak for the old Draconians,
Right.
but I really like what they've done with the Draconians in Fizban, where they are a created race. They're homunculi in a way,
Right.
where they are born from dragon eggs without being true dragons. They're a bastard dragon, whereas the
Right.
Dragonborn are their own thing. They're their own people.
Right.
The kobold are kind of just like they're just goblins but dragons, so I can't really there. I just think they're fun.
Right. And I kind of agree with you there, but I personally feel that these 3 different lineages of dragon-related humanoids could be better thought out and more consistently tied together. Perhaps I feel like it's a little bit dilute. And there could be differences between them. I just don't think that they've got a very strong case for those 3 differences right now. Or maybe I just haven't looked at them hard enough, so I can expect to be slapped in the face.
They're going to be changed quite a lot by the time oned&d comes around, where they'll probably try to make the laws of these things a bit better.
Right.
And then you of course have the, tangentially, the dragons that aren't part of your metallic, gem, or chromatic lineages, like the Moonstone Dragon, which is one of my favorite newer dragon types. I think it's fantastic, and it's gem adjacent, but it's very tied to the Feywild.
Right.
Very in a similar way that the Fomorians or the Firbolgs are giants, but a step away.
Right, and they sort of come from older editions of D&D, and they've been brought back in again and kind of upgraded, upstatted, evolved.
Yeah.
Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah. Fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. So how is Vaingate Chronicles going for you guys at the moment? I mean, Jordan, you watch...
It's the worst thing I've ever done. No, I love it. It's great.
Jordan, you've
like
got an opinion about it at the moment, I feel.
Yeah, as a viewer, how do you feel?
As a viewer, I'm very angry at all of you because I mean, I totally get it. People get sick. People, have other lives and stuff. But you've put me on a cliffhanger, and the cliffhanger is such a big one, especially for Joe and for essentially me, because I play a Daughter of Twilight. So for me, this is going like overtime in my head, and you've been off for the past 2 weeks, and then obviously Joe, you've gone away, which is fine. I totally get that. That's fine. But
it's not fine, Joe.
It's not fine. It's not fine at all. But in terms of the actual show itself, I'm loving it. I think you guys are so good. You guys, when you guys are playing, it doesn't feel like I'm listening to you guys. It feels like I'm listening to the characters. I'm actually seeing the characters in their story. And yeah, Joe, we see that. We know you're watching from New York.
You are watching from New York, yeah.
Yeah. So as a viewer, I think you guys are absolutely and playing, and how you deliver your characters is so strong. But come back early, Joe, because I want to find out what's happening.
Right. Well,
I
believe
cliffhanger on a moon.
They are literally on a moon. The player characters are on a moon.
On a moon, talking to Celestial,
probably
and
not
your eyes are now
moonstones.
Moonstones.
Yeah.
And come back early, Joe. Screw the family. Come back early.
Well, I mean, Joanne, you were talking about the possibility of streaming from. You'd be in Canada by the time you'd be settled down enough to do that. Maybe next week. Is that a possibility still, or we're obviously you're not there yet, so you won't know until you get there, I assume. But I'm imagining Joanne's typing furiously right now. She's typing furiously that she is going to stream next week, and she's going to have super powerful internet, and she said
She
yes,
said, yeah,
hopefully.
hopefully.
Make it happen.
Make it
I
so.
don't
Make it
care if you.
happen.
I don't care if you have to steal a laptop and a modem and a generator and go into a bivouac in the middle of the woods.
Break into an ISP and hook your computer straight into the mains. Boom.
That's the problem with having fans, eh?
Fans.
And it's
Well,
okay.
They keep you cool in summer, which is quite nice.
The great thing about streaming like 3 or 4 times a week now is that we can all be each other's fans, so at least we have that. So that's cool.
That's about all we have. Yeah.
Everyone clicks so wonderfully. I have to admit, my heart silently cries inside when you miss a stream. That was Wolfskin Witch. Now that's a quote. I'm gonna stick that on the website.
It is so me as well. I think I can totally agree with you there.
Joanne says she's got her butt cheeks crossed. Also her fingers. She said fingers and butt cheeks, but I
Butt
just
cheeks
got
so much more powerful.
I can just the butt cheeks crossed. How do you do that?
You got to twist them like a pretzel.
Right. That makes sense.
Very easy.
I'm
just
a
can't-
doctor. You can trust me.
That's something I didn't need in my mind. Okay.
Right. Fair enough. So
Everyone knows the power is in your butt. It's like, what is it that in Shintoism there's a part of their myth is that the soul is kept in the ass.
I've not heard that before.
I mean, let me find that, because I could be, for lack of better phrasing, I could be just speaking out of my ass. But let me double check.
Speaking out of your soul,
You're speaking out of my soul. Why would I lie?
Wolfskin Witch says squeeze and tuck them together. Butt yoga. Butt yoga. There you go.
Love it.
butt
Do
yoga.
any of the people listening want to ask us questions?
That's a great point, Barry. Does anybody listening have any questions? Because we are here and we're stuck here in front of you. We've got nothing else to do. So, are you referencing the red chakra?
No. Hold on, in a moment. Okay, so I learned this based on following Sekiro, which is a game by FromSoft, and also Elden Ring.
So
by
you
a
got
particular
this
character.
from a game.
I learned about it from a game, but it's a real thing.
Okay.
I'm
Hey,
just
D&D
reading this from a
player
Reddit.
1131. Welcome.
Welcome. Now, coming back to the Dung Eater, people who have played Sekiro will get the reference right away. In Japanese folklore, the soul exists as a small, hardened, magical ball within the anus known as shirikodama, small anus ball. That's the translation. Creatures such as the kappa will extract this orb directly through the anus if you dare enter the lake. So people, search up shirikodama. I'm not bullshitting.
Hello, Twitch TOS team.
I'm educating the people.
I'm
know.
I'm dumbfounded. I don't even know whether to respond to this for fear of reprisals from the internet.
Look it up. I hope I've been bamboozled by the internet. I hope I've been boomered into believing something that people say on the internet.
Right. All right. Well, I feel that we're getting a little off topic now, and I'm gonna take the reins here
Oh, no.
and grab the reins, and we're gonna pull the stream around this way.
Joe's fault. It was my
think it's
sister's fault.
damn it.
Yes.
I think it's even
Blame
more of a problem now because Joe's daughter asked if she could listen, and so she took her headphones off and heard that conversation. So Michael would now traumatize a child.
I have educated Joe's daughter about Japanese mythology.
All right.
I think I should be accredited.
You should be accredited. Wolfskin Witch says that she has a question.
Yes.
So, Wolfskin Witch, is this for... I'm going to ask this for each person, basically, because you weren't specific about who to answer this. So I'm going to ask each of you guys. If you could borrow one of the other player's abilities in the game, what would you borrow? Barry.
The growth thing.
Right, so Adric's growth power.
Yep.
Right, that would be cool. So how does it work, Adric? How does it work, Michael, rather?
So on a bonus action, I enlarge to large size, which I've based on like some research, is I've approximated to about 10 feet tall. You become huge from 15 feet upwards, allegedly.
What
But
kind
basically,
of... Yeah.
yeah.
I was going to say, what kind of research do you do to find out that it's like 10, 12 feet tall?
So you literally just go onto Google and you search size categories in D&D, and they vary across editions.
Right.
But 10 feet, from 10 feet to 15 feet seems to be the consensus that I've managed to come to of being large. 15 to 25 is huge, and from 25 upwards is gigantic.
Right, okay, so that's how you figured out how big your character gets from dwarf size to giant size,
Yeah,
to
so
enlarged size.
yeah, so Adric is about 4'6", and then from 4'6" goes to about 10 feet tall.
What other creatures are about 10 feet tall that you can think of that would be a sort of comparable size?
Ogres? I'd say ogres are generally between 10 and 12 feet tall.
Maybe trolls.
Trolls, and then from then,
Yeah.
golems definitely as well, and then after them you get hill giants, which I think are about the next category up, because they are at the very bottom end of the ordering,
Right.
and they are huge.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's Barry's question answered.
So let me finish with the height thing. I get an extra D6, then D8, and then D10 extra damage once per turn.
Right.
Advantage on strength things, and I can do that for a minute.
Wow. So
It's
advantage
pretty
on
good.
strength checks and extra damage,
Yeah.
and you're
It's-
enlarged. Right.
So can
Yes,
you
indeed.
imagine Storm with that?
That'd be terrifying.
That would be terrifying.
That would be terrifying. I wonder if there's any feats or maybe magical items. I mean, I suppose you could use a potion of hill giant strength or something, or enlargement. Probably a potion of enlargement.
Like,
would be
what was
this-
it that
I've done that before.
Goodale had that recently?
Yeah, she was very excited about it. I recall in the Forge Gate.
Because everyone likes to be big.
The only problem was, didn't it make her smaller though?
We had mixed up potions.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
So
the
one did
interesting
one, the other
thing,
did the
Jordan.
other.
You see, I mean, I recall. Did you see the episode where they bought the potions?
Yes, I did see the episode where they bought
Right.
the potions.
Right.
Yeah.
And I recall at the end of that episode, they were all like very excited about their potions, and I was like, "Do you realize that I've just completely fucking screwed you guys?" And they were like, "What? What are you talking about?" We have not yet revealed the truth of that scenario yet, have we, in the game?
No, we have not.
All right. I'm going to stay mum about that. I'm just going to
Something about that, absolutely.
keep my
Let's
mouth
keep it
shut.
quiet.
Jordan, do you want to go next about what ability you would like to steal?
From another player character in either Dagdagiel or Sundance, maybe Dagdagiel, because that's the one that we stream. Anybody
Would
that
you like
watches
to? Would you like to? Would you like to correct that name of Sunfall?
Sunfall? What did I say?
You said Sundance.
Sundance. Oh my god, yes, sorry, Sunfall.
I think you're thinking of a different thing.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I would like to take from another player is probably Theo. I think Theo would be a fun thing to take.
Theo, right.
One of our players has a familiar called Theo, who is a fire moth. Very warm, very cute, and I think that would just be fabulous to have as an old 45-year-old human wizard. Oh no, sorcerer, even better.
Sorcerer, yeah.
No, I'm very much against wizards. Having this warm little creature as a like a hot water pillow, as a hot water bottle, that would be fabulous. Just walk around with it.
Right.
Yeah.
A little hot, fiery moth. Quite big, actually. It's like a fucking
Quite big.
football-sized moth, actually. It's...
Terrifying.
Pretty big.
It sounds like a fucking nightmare.
Well, and on top of that, I mean, I don't know if Mad Girl Charlie is watching right now, but I think she was in earlier. This moth can teleport characters 15 feet on its bonus action,
Oh yes. Oh god, I
And-
love the fire druid.
and drops a fucking fiery area of effect spell that causes anything in that range where it teleported from to take fire damage. It's mean. It's a bonus action.
Great.
Bonus
It's so
action.
useful. I love it.
It's pretty cool, and she's used it to great effect many times now. So you know, in fact, it's what got Rokan, Barry's character in Dagdagiel, out of his chains the other night when he was chained up against the post inside the yurt. It was quite handy. We had to look it up to see whether or not we felt that you could teleport out of chains, but I think the answer was yes, you can. That's why we have the spell Dimensional Shackles. To prevent
About you,
teleport.
Russell?
What about
What
me?
would you take from...
If I could take something from one of you guys,
Yeah, because you've seen everything.
I have seen everything. That's interesting. I mean, I don't have a character exactly, so it's hard to say. You know, what would I take? And I mean, I could just create a character that has whatever the fuck I liked.
Okay, so the question for you is, what ability would you take from the player? As in, if you could take away one ability from each of us,
If I could take away
of
an
our
ability.
players, yeah, what would you take?
Ooh.
That we could never use again.
Ooh.
I know you take my fucking runic shield. You hate me stopping your crits.
I see that as a very functional and probably required balancing act within the game, to be fair. So I wouldn't actually take that because I think that would make the game less fun. What would I take away? I don't know that I would. I think that... Yeah, I can't see how I could take anything away from any of your characters that wouldn't undermine your character's concept somehow. There are possibly cases where you've got magic items that you don't use that maybe should just be pruned. Because they're sort of sitting there doing nothing, and it's like, well, do you really need those? You're not really valuing them. I should just have those disappear. But I wouldn't do that without, you know, actually discussing it first. Or if I had a plot line where somebody was able to break into your bag of holding and steal your shit, Madame Lazuli says, I feel targeted.
Oh, what you mean, like the bag man in what is it? The most recent thing with what's it called? With Strahd.
With
Say- no.
Strahd.
Yeah, there's a cryptid within the most recent Strahd book called the Bagman. It's not statted, and it's an entity that lives in all bags of holdings at the same
Really?
time.
What?
And it's this persistent fear. Look it up. It's fucking terrifying.
What? That sounds very peculiar. Very peculiar indeed.
He says, going, I can use this.
Yeah, I can... Bagman, you say? What?
Yeah. I mean, whenever you open it, like it's a hand, comes out and potentially pulls your character in.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I'd probably steal Barry's his aura, to be honest,
The
because
paladin.
there's nothing I really have. I've built Adric thematically, and I'm very happy with where he is at the moment and where he's going.
Right.
But if I could have one thing, it would just be that passive aura that I think would kind of complete what he's doing.
Right. Right. Well, here's an interesting question for you guys. Who would be interested in doing an experimental stream sometime, maybe in the new year?
Go on.
Whereupon I am intending to run at some point once more my science fiction role-playing scenario. Some of you have probably tried this before and others haven't. I know I had a session with, it was Caitlin and Charlie actually, about a year ago was the last time I did this. Barry, were you in that?
That I was the creature that could change into
Right.
robot animals.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, considering throwing that together again, and maybe this time streaming it rather than just recording it, could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I would totally be keen.
Keen for
You
that.
know that already.
The system. Wildheart is asking the system. Now, this is where it gets tricky, you see, Wildheart, because I don't have a system for this particular scenario, and I'm open to ideas, but the system is going to have to be very flexible, because this scenario requires everything from spaceships with faster-than-light travel to mecha, fighting robots that can essentially unpack interdimensional equipment from inside their reserves. They have the ability to unfold space.
A bag of holding.
Yeah, like a bag of holding, except that depending on what magnitude of equipment that you have, the order of differences haven't been kind of solved or figured out yet. The metrics have not been described well. So yeah, fate system, you can do anything. Well, maybe we need to look at fate. As far as the scenario is concerned, basically characters would be, you'd probably be synthetic clones as starting points, and the type of clone that you choose is kind of like choosing a class or a race. So you might choose like a Spartan clone, which is designed for war, a war clone. Or you might choose a clone that's designed more kind of for hacking type activities. Or you might not have a clone at all. You might simply reside in the, I guess what we would call the web or the internet at this point. I'm not.
That's where my character comes from.
Right. So I'm not going to pull out all the details just yet because it's too much to kind of take in. But it's a very complex world. My other thoughts about it was to start a scenario where everybody's playing children on a low-tech planet that's been forgotten about by the greater universe at large, and so basically children come across some kind of transformative technology. So that could be kind of fun. Playing a child could be amusing, or it could be really annoying. I don't know. We'll see. But right, mechs as in Gundam, exactly. Except mechs as in Gundam that can pull out football fields worth of weapons and ammunition and bombs and equipment, and they can fly, and they can use gravitronic effects and run up walls and stuff like that as well.
So there's two systems that I've encountered that have those forms of technology.
Okay.
And one of them is Stars Without Number, which is a kind of a complicated system, but I'd recommend looking at it because it's a lot of fun.
Okay.
And also another one that I've looked at very, very briefly called Lancer, which is built around mechs.
Okay.
You have your pilots, which have their own stats,
Right.
but the game is more about the mechs. So have a look at that. That might be a bit you. And also overarms.
Right.
I'll chuck that into the into our chat
Cool.
because it's very rules light, and I really enjoy how it uses its resources.
Okay. Well, I will have a look into those things. And maybe what we should do is even do some test plays out of the scenario using different rule sets to see which rule sets gel.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
might be
no, I
kind
think
of
that's
fun.
great.
Yes. Yes, very well. Does anybody else have any exciting experimental role-playing that they've done? Anybody in chat, maybe? Maybe Wildheart. You might have some ideas or thoughts that you've come across. I love experimental role-playing more than anything, to be honest. I like the idea. Barry and I have done this for years. We would sit down at a table and we'd just start somewhere. You know? We'd talk about it, come up with a character, and one of us would be the DM, and we would Cthulhu LARPing. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Played a lot of vampire LARPing. Not so much Cthulhu. I've only played 2 Cthulhu games. But very keen to play. So yeah.
I read through the the Cthulhu source book a little while ago.
Yeah.
While I was in Melbourne, and it's fascinating. It's the lore of the Cthulhu mythos is just brilliant.
Yeah,
Like if you ignore everything about H.P. Lovecraft, it's brilliant.
H.P. Lovecraft, the racist.
Yeah, we don't
Misogynist.
want to talk about what the hell he called his cat.
Right. But he certainly tapped into some archetypal energy there.
Big time.
And he wasn't the only one either. He was friends with Robert Howard, the guy that created Conan the Barbarian, and they collaborated on ideas and concepts and things as well. Angels and Demons, is that a game system talk? I'm not sure. I've not played that one, but it sounds like
It
might
is.
be.
It is.
It is? Okay. Yeah, they were buddies for sure. Yeah, that's right. And what's his face? Howard, he killed himself at the age of 30, I think, when his mother died. He locked himself in his... Yeah, he wrote Conan the Barbarian and Red Sonja and Solomon Kane and a bunch of other really now very famous... King Kull, he wrote that. who was the original Conan, actually. And then he got to the age of 30, didn't even get famous, and he locked himself in the garage and turned on the car and sat in the car until he passed out, and that was the end of Robert Howard. That happened after his mother died, so...
Fuck me, that's harrowing.
Yeah. He was a boxer, and he lived in a place called Cross Plains, Texas. How do I know all this shit about Robert Howard? I used to be a very big Conan fan, that's how. So, yeah.
He what? Did he what?
Did I what? That's true. That's why I love playing barbarians, but, you know, hey.
Barbarians are so much fun. People don't give barbarians enough.
We should do a
credit.
campaign all barbarians.
I'm into it. I fucking love barbarians so
All
goddamn
barbarians.
much.
Okay. We should do a one-shot at least.
Yeah.
I mean...
Barbarians.
Right. So I have a plan for a stream that I would like to do one day, where I would like to get an all-female cast of Daughters of Twilight, paladins and clerics. I think that would be interesting. Clerics are so versatile. I know we keep
Especially
coming back
now
to
with oned&d, what they've done to them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But we more coming up on the horizon, I guess. We will be looking at the Shadowfell storyline coming up soon with Milford Brixton. As Joe said, bring back Brixton. That was our campaign for a while. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
That was fun. So it will be interesting. Very interesting. So many things happening in Vaingate right now, the moons and so you guys are looking at, last I heard, the player characters of Vaingate Chronicles are talking about heading down to see KIRKBY Mingal. That was the general plan, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I think we've put that off long enough.
Right.
And it's about time, especially because, like, you know, I love orcs, and they're so often archetypally the bad guy. It's really refreshing to see them in a counterculture. And I'm not going to say good, because I don't like to use that, especially for this campaign, because that's not nuanced.
No offense to, sorry for stopping you. No offense to Star Trek, but I play them like Klingons.
Right.
Basically.
Could you explain that to me? Because I haven't watched any Star Trek.
So are you aware of what the Klingon race is, Michael?
I'm aware that they are warlike.
Right.
But that's just about all I'm aware of.
It's like a warlike samurai race.
Okay.
Right.
That's what they were based on.
They are right. They consider honor to be one of the most important aspects of life and so on. And and I think it's a kind of a fair and reasonable way to look at them. They have houses and stuff too, so they have nobles and nobility. They have religion and philosophy. They have operas.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
operas.
Yep. But they do talk very gruffly, and their voices and look is very Orcan, you know, and its stylistically, aesthetically, traditionally at least. The new Star Trek Discovery kind of recast them a little bit. They updated the Klingons. I personally really liked it, but not everybody did, because they've, you know, attached to the old versions. But they also updated, what are they called? The,
Romulans.
Huh?
Romulans?
No. What are they called? The lizard guys, the lizard folk. Really scary fucking Gorn. The Gorn.
The Gorn, yeah.
Because the Gorn was just so cheesy back in Star Trek in the old days. They were just like a dude in a lizard suit, and it looked ridiculous. It was fucking stupid. But now, the Gorn with CG and like alien, you know, effects, it's mad. They're terrifying, and that's how they should be. That was good. I really like that. So, the Gorn. But yeah, as Barry says, the orcs and the Klingons, a lot in common. Makes a lot of sense. to play them like that. I've got a lot of lore that I've recently thrown up and created for the orcs in Sidarial. Everything from houses to leaders to cities that they come from, and some of their factions, including the Red Fangs of Shargas, who are presently engaged in 2 different campaigns for reasons. Possibly
Reasons,
3
you say?
campaigns soon. It's curious, I've got 2 different campaigns where 2 different players heard about KIRKBY Mingal in different ways and both made the same character decision, which was to be a child of KIRKBY Mingal. And I thought that was fascinating. That
I haven't decided whether Storm's going to stay there yet.
Storm or
we'll see what happens.
Rokan? Do you mean Rokan?
No, Storm.
Storm.
Yeah. So Barry, what is your plan with Storm so far? Just
Right.
because outwardly, from a player and a character point of view, Storm has achieved his objective.
Right. So you found smoke, and that was that. And so now it's a question of what does Storm want to do?
Yeah.
And I did want to talk to you about this too, because I've got thoughts. But let's hear your thoughts first.
Well, he's lived in Dagdagil for such a long time now. And so has Smoke, and she has druid tendencies in Dagdagil. So she
Right.
might want to go back to Dagdagil. Because they don't see Dagdagil as dangerous.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and how will that work with the stream though? Because the players aren't heading there. So how do we? I mean, I get why Storm is familiar with Dagdagil, so that makes sense. The players, the rest of the characters, are in a situation where they're literally working against Dagdagil. Dagdagil are the enemy. There's a couple of scenarios in which Storm could be useful in that. And one is that they decide to go to Dagdagil in order to find out more about the enemy and undermine them and go on some sort of mission to destroy them from within. That is a possibility, albeit, believe me, that won't be as easy as that. The other thing I thought...
Never is with you, Russell. It
Right,
never is.
of course. Now, the other thing I would suggest is, and I wanted to talk to you more specifically, Barry, regarding this, and I guess as a viewer, it might be interesting to see how we're actually going about this, and that is basically with metagaming. Barry, I was considering having the Cat Lord directly contact Storm. If it's good enough for Seheni Moonbow's avatar and for Moradin's avatar to be here saving the world, then is there a reason why the Cat Lord, who's already seen his continent of Ixalan destroyed by volcanoes, perhaps he sees Storm as the last surviving member of a race that he spawned, and thusly and a potential avatar as well. So what do you think along those lines?
Not averse to that.
You're not adverse to it. In
No.
which case, an appearance through a dream or a prophecy whilst you're still on that moon, before you guys make the decision to transport somewhere, might be enough to persuade Storm and Smoke to stay with the group and head to KIRKBY Mingal, because the Cat Lord has deemed this an appropriate matching of heroes.
You know, just off the top of my head, you know, it'd be really, really cool, just for Storm.
Yeah.
As a viewer, I would love to see Storm multi-class into Warlock, with like maybe Hexblade, and his weapon is his bow or something.
What?
I don't know. Like I don't know. It depends on the pact. But let me just pull it up, because it's when you were talking about the Cat Lord contacts him. But I'm a massive Warlock fan. I fucking love the Warlock.
By this rationale, Adric could be a Warlock.
Adric could be a Warlock. But to be fair, the Warlock and Cleric are so similar, and I've got plans for Cleric Adric. Viewers, you didn't hear that.
Are you
But just
planning a multi-class dip into cleric?
Are you
Yeah,
dipping
well,
into cleric?
I might be. You don't know.
You don't know.
I mean, I didn't hear anything. What do you want
You
about?
didn't hear anything. Everything I'm doing is like entirely that I've planned out months ago for like to fit his character arc.
Okay, viewers, don't tell them this. I'm gonna have to knock these characters off on the head before this gets too far. This is going too far. No.
Just a
Worry.
thought for the like a dip into Hexblade, because I don't know, he two swords quite a lot, and that's quite fun to me.
Yeah, that's true.
A thought.
He's got a lot to say to the Cat Lord.
Yeah, I bet he does.
Yeah.
And it would be cool to like with the warlock that there is an implied relationship there. So I don't know. It will be quite, because what I know about the Cat Lord can fill fuck all, but he's quite they're quite mercurial, as all cats are. So this in my head feels like something it would do on a whim.
I mean, well, okay. So, what would be the benefits of making him a warlock as a subclass, as a multi-class first level warlock? What would he get?
Okay, so first level, just as a hexblade, have a look. There are others that may fit better, but for me, the hexblade fits best because of the implied luck things that sit with cats. So at first level, you acquire the training necessary to effectively arm yourself for battle, proficiency with medium armor, shields, and weapons, something he already has. But the influence of your patron also allows you to mystically channel your will through a particular weapon. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can touch one weapon that you're proficient with that lacks a 200 property. You attack with that weapon, you can use your charisma modifier instead of strength or dexterity. So it's a pact, rather. And also at first level, he gains something that is very similar to a Hunter's Mark. But it gains bonus damage rolls against the cursed target. Bonus equals your proficiency bonus. This doesn't also require
Is this Hex?
Yeah, Hex. It's
Right.
a form of Hex.
Right.
Any attack roll you make against the cursed target is a critical hit on a roll of 19 or 20. And if the cursed target dies, you regain hit points equal to your warlock level plus your charisma modifier. And then there's things where like they curse their target into a specter that follows them around.
Right.
And that's just the particulars of the Hexblade.
Right.
They gain cantrips, which the ranger doesn't have. At level 3, they gain Pact of the Blade, Chain, Tome, or the Amulet.
Well, Barry, it's lucky that you're getting that player's handbook from Jordan, because you're going to have a lot of reading to do.
Yeah. And at level 2, you get Eldritch Invocations, and there's some fucking fun ones in there.
Eldritch Invocation. So, well, Barry, okay, as far as Storm is concerned in your mind, because he's your character, and I'm not in any case, in any way, interested in violating your conception of this character.
This is me throwing ideas out there because that's what I do.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, because Michael realizes that 2/3 of everything that you guys throw at me just smashes up against a hardened brick wall and slides down like a plate of eggs. But every now and again, some of it gets through the grit and winds up in the game. And so, you know, does any of that interest you, Barry? Are you interested in Storm having magic?
I was thinking, what crossed my mind is, what do Tabashi really have? What do the real characters Tabashi really have? What are they capable of?
When you say the real characters, you mean the race? The race?
Yeah,
of
the
Tabashi?
race.
Let me pull it up.
Well, you've got, if you look at your character sheet, we can have a quick nosy. I'll pull up Storm.
So Tabashi, can assure alignment. Dark vision, obviously. Feline agility. Your reflexes and agility allow you to move with a burst of speed. When you move on your turn in combat, you can double your speed until the end of your turn. So you gain a free dash.
Yeah.
Cat's claws. Because of your claws, you have a climbing speed of 20 feet. Always useful. In addition, your claws are natural weapons. So you gain an extra 1d4 damage plus your strength mod instead of bludgeoning. You have proficiency in perception and stealth. and you can speak, read, and write Common and one language of your choice. So it's pretty standard shit.
Pretty standard shit. Yeah, and there's really no especially strong information about how to play Tabashi. Other than that they're wandering
There's an
cat
alignment thing here, but we
people.
don't.
Yeah, I mean, what is the official alignment of the Tabashi originally?
Let's see. Size where. You know, it was just here, and I went out of my way to ignore it.
Right.
Looking at the wrong fucking thing, aren't I? Tends toward chaotic alignments, as they let impulse and fancy guide their decisions.
Right.
They are rarely evil, with most of them driven by curiosity rather than greed or other dark impulses.
Right.
So chaotic neutral feels most right to me, because cats are seldom good either.
Right. Yeah, neutral seems pretty obvious, doesn't it? I mean, you might get the occasional good cat, but yeah, and neutral is more. To me, that speaks of creatures or individuals that have an interest in maintaining the natural balance rather than trying to make humans the most powerful force in the universe, or trying to save all the people or all the species or what have you. It's about that ebb and flow of balance when you're neutral, and chaotic neutral, I suppose. For a cat makes sense. Did you say chaotic neutral? It was, wasn't it?
I said chaotic. I did say chaotic neutral. They tend towards chaotic alignments. They didn't specify whether any of those three things fit best.
Right. Certainly, I've certainly met some evil fucking cats, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
They can be little bastards, can't they? Let's face it. So, as far as Barry's character is concerned, like if you look at what he's got now, which is he's got like dual wielder and sharpshooter as traits. His proficiencies are stealth and intimidation. He's got the feline agility, the dark vision, the cat's claws. He's got that climbing speed with that. He's a medium creature, humanoid, speaks dwarvish, actually. That's interesting. We could change that, by the way, if you wanted to. I have no fixation on that. Racial traits, what did we increase? Strength and dexterity. Land stride. Moving through non-magical, difficult terrain costs you no extra movement, and you can also pass through non-magical plants without being slowed down by them, without taking damage from them. You can have advantage on saving throws against plants that are magically created or manipulated to impede your movement. So anybody trying to catch you with some sort of viney business, any of that druidic stuff, or even rangery stuff, is going to have a hard time. You have a defensive tactic called multi-attack defense. When a creature hits you with an attack, you gain a +4 bonus to AC against all subsequent attacks made by that creature for the rest of the turn. You know, and I'm not sure we've ever used that or played it.
What ranger class is he?
He's a hunter ranger, if I'm not wrong.
Hunter. Okay, so that's the ranger, 7th level ranger feat. Right.
Multi-attack defense. So you can attack twice on the attack action on your turn. You have the feat dual wielder. We mentioned that. Colossus Slayer is your hunter's prey ability. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, the creature takes an extra d8 damage if it's below its hit points maximum. So if you hit something, or if you're hitting something that somebody's already hit, you get an extra d8 damage. That's fucking scary. You know, that's pretty impressive, actually. We have to make sure that we use these rules, because this is why the ranger has been undervalued, I feel. You know,
I was talking to Joe about her ranger as well. The Horizon Walker, she hasn't been using her extra d8 force damage.
Wow.
Or her other ethereal step thing. The rangers are fantastically good when you use them right, especially with the stuff that came from Tasha's that I've used on Peleus.
So here's an interesting thing. I just feel might be fun to talk about. What is your mindset when you're role playing? What are you thinking about when you're role playing? Like, how do you go into that? How do you approach it? What are you thinking about? Are you listening? Where's your concentration? You know, how do you go about your role playing? Michael, do you have an opening bout on that?
Yeah. I do the same thing that I do when I do improv. I empty myself. You know, I make myself a vessel for the world around me, for input from everybody else.
Right.
I remember what's happened before, and I'm ready to accept and make offers. I listen to my character's playlist, and I'm in. I'm generally right there, like from the word go. It's not especially hard for me to get in.
So you find that music really helps you get into character?
Big time.
What about when you're playing? Like, say for example, you're in a situation where there could be combat, or there is combat. Where's your mind now? Once initiative has been rolled.
It depends on the character. I think. For me, for while we're doing this, my first thought is music.
Right.
Weirdly enough, and once the music itself is right, and it also depends on what we're fighting. If it's a Shusuva, there's not quite as much emotional engagement as when, for example, when we were in the Drow City. There was a lot of tension there for Adric. So I needed to put up a strong front. I needed to be intelligent, so I couldn't be flailing about haplessly. So
Right.
I think I was a lot more cautious then for that particular moment.
Right. What about you, Barry? How do you get into character, and how do you stay in character, and how do you deal with combat? Three different questions, really.
First questions first. How do I get into character? With someone like, of course it depends who I'm playing,
Right.
but with someone like Ren, I just think about, I make sure to become him. Before we play the game, I listen to music that makes me think of Ren, makes me think of what he might like. That might be Enigma, something like that.
Right.
And I can understand Michael's music thing, because that really does get me in. So before the game, I listen to that a lot.
Right.
Until you interrupt me. And then I think of Ren, the things he believes in, the things that are important to him.
Relationships.
And, his relationship with his sister, which is a very strong driving force for him. His relationships with the people around him.
Right.
And why he has these relationships. And here I've got to give credit to the rest of the players, because they also are the trigger to how I act and how I react. Without them, there would be no reaction.
They say that acting is listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I depend on listening because my disability doesn't allow me to see so much.
Right.
And move so much. So I depend on listening. I depend on finding their keys, learning what they think about things too, so that I can react to those things.
That makes sense.
And that's how I focus. And the same with all of them. I get into that character and stay there.
Right. That's fair. Jordan, do you have a method that you apply?
I think it's pretty much the same as Michael's. It's kind of listen to a soundtrack, how I think that character would feel, listen to,
respond.
if they were alive.
Yeah.
They are alive. But it's also a case of, like, like everyone says, listening to the other players and grabbing off them what they're saying and being a vessel myself to how to let things just open up and kind of move forward with that story or whatever it may be.
Right. Right, that makes sense. Interesting. I I was thinking about how I approach it. And I mean, when I first asked the question, I was originally thinking about, like, with combat scenarios, like, what are you doing when other people are taking their turns, for example?
I see.
You know, and
I'm planning way ahead.
Right, you're planning, right? You're planning. You're looking at your character sheet. You're going through everything on your character sheet, and you're finding loopholes and ways to use that in the scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Because, especially depending on the character, Adric and Peleus are expert martial people. They do think in advance. Typically what's going to happen. Peleus less so now because of that berserker thing.
Right.
But they are generally prepared for. They try to be prepared for anything that can happen.
Right. That makes sense. Right. Barry, going off on a new subject here, you mentioned your disability before. Do you want to tell us, like, how does role-playing, what do you get from role-playing in regards to that? How does that affect your life? What do you get out of role-playing?
Well, as you know, Russell, I can't move very well.
Right. And that's because you have...
cerebral palsy.
Right.
I have a disability called cerebral palsy, which affects the movement part of my brain.
Okay.
But it doesn't... in a little ways, it affects the thinking part of my brain too. But because I've role-played, I've always maintained that's helped the thinking part of my brain.
Right.
Because when you're judging, you have to bloody think your way out of everything. And you have to think fast.
Right.
There's no such thing as, I'll wait around for a week. Well, no. You've really got to think fast. So it has been a real help to my disability.
Oh, he's put out the timer, Barry.
Yeah, I just put the timer up there to put the pressure on.
Yeah, and that does. Every time he does it, makes me nervous.
As it should. But have you noticed how nobody ever gets to the end of the timer? It's remarkable, you know. All you have to do is hold up the timer, and within seconds,
no more dilly-dally.
Within seconds, you have an answer for what you want. Usually, I don't think I've ever seen it run out. Yeah.
Good, I guess.
It's good, I guess. It's good. Yes. Interesting. Well, it's 4:35. I think I've talked through all the things I had to bring to the topic, to the subject, to the table. Does anybody else have any questions or ideas or thoughts or topics of conversation they'd like to run through? More D&D, 1D&D?
No, I think I'm well talked out.
You're all
honestly.
talked
I talked
out.
about far more than I thought we would.
Right, we really did rabbit on for 2.5 hours. It's good.
Listeners, I hope you
Pretty
found that
much
entertaining.
covered it.
It's a good show. Yeah.
Show, absolutely.
So, well, thank you all for watching then, I guess. We might as well wrap it up here. You guys all good with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Come back, Joe, so we don't have to do this again.
Yeah, come back.
Well, didn't you enjoy yourself, Baz?
Joe and Caitlin.
I feel like this is something we should be doing regularly anyway. No,
Yeah.
It feels like this is we need to just sort of decompress between sessions, between games, give the audience a chance to give us their feedback as well, and we can engage you guys directly this way. It's a lot easier to do when we're not role playing.
Yeah. Because like what a Critical Role and Taz have these after session things.
Right.
Like, what is it for the Adventure Zone? It's just called the Adventure Zone, which is a fantastic joke, like word joke that I think is very funny.
Right. Yeah, and I just thought I'd call this Rolestream Live. That way we can talk about anything that's basically streamed on this channel, whether it's one of our sessions or Vaingate or Dagdagiel or whatever. And we can talk about just streaming and role-playing games generally, and it's a very open kind of scenario like that. So, cool. If anyone has any ideas about what they'd like us to stream, what they'd like us to talk about, or if you would like to come and be a guest, drop me a line.
We're very friendly and inclusive. We won't abuse and or assault you.
Well, we're not that inclusive. I mean, Barry spent 30 years basically trying to con me into, being involved. I wasn't going to buy it, but he started, sending me packets of white powder, and I thought, well, I was going to go that far. I might as well. Just kidding.
TOS helpline. How can I help?
One of these might be anthrax. Who knows?
One of them might be anthrax. All right. Well, we're going to raid somebody just because we can, and that's how it goes. This has got to be one of the first streams we've done where we haven't had anyone roll for initiative. I almost asked you to roll for initiative at the beginning of the game, but I figured at the beginning of the session, nobody had D&D Beyond open. It wouldn't be very funny watching everybody scrambling to open their character sheets.
I've got my dice in my hand now.
You got your dice in your hand. Okay.
Yeah, I've got dice here always because running multiple things makes me slow.
All right. Well, do we want to raid Magi RPG, who has 61 viewers and is playing D&D, or do we want to raid the Crowned DM with 163 players, also playing D&D, or Felicia Day, who is just a cool actress?
Felicia Day, let's do her. She's we haven't done one of her streams yet.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you guys know who Felicia Day is?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yes.
Awesome. Just checking. All right, well, we're going to raid Felicia then. She's got 501 viewers. We're going to say hello. And, feel free to tell her and her viewers where we came from and how cool we are and how they all need to come and subscribe and follow and do the things, God damn it.
Tell Felicia Day to come on our stream, I guess.
By the way, we're trying to get to 400 followers at the moment, so if you know anyone that needs to follow a stream, there's one right here. Just click the follow button.
There's a stream that need followers, and they have a stream that they need to follow. So,
right.
It's a match made in streaming.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to raid now. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
There we go.
Nice
That was
memes.
good.